Welcome to Self Perfected.
There we go. Yo,
And
what's up,
live.
everybody?
Ooh,
What's up?
this is gonna
How
be.
did you get it to record and Facebook Live like at the same time like that?
It wasn't him.
Synchronized.
Just
That's
really
why.
quick.
Him. It was
Cameron?
him.
Cameron,
The guy-
that's proprietary info. So
Oh, sorry.
if,
What was that?
if Christine, if Christine reveals that, then we'll be able to replace her. So she shouldn't.
What are you snacking on there?
Man, I made some eggs bagel.
What is it?
Eggs
Nice.
with the cherry tomatoes and stuff. Whoa,
Yeah.
that camera's
Whoa.
focusing right there.
Cherry
Oh.
tomatoes in the eggs? I don't know about that.
It's pretty good. I don't even normally really like tomatoes that much.
Hey, I had someone hit me up this morning. It was funny. So yesterday we had a big party at our house, like end of the summer
Nice.
kind of thing, and the baby will
Oh,
be here
nice.
in like a week. So
Nice.
we're like, let's just have everyone come over and hang out. And we made this really good bacon from our neighbors. It was so great. And I like thought for a moment.
Wait a
before
minute. Pause
Let's just have a moment of silence.
for your
Okay.
neighbors.
Rest in peace.
And I was like, okay, because the bacon looked amazing. Jess like cooked it in the oven. It was all sizzly. So I took a video and I put on my story right after we
Sizzle-
drank this green
sizzle
juice.
reel?
Yeah, basically. So I was like, green juice for all the vegans, bacon for all the carnivores, and I showed both, right? Because I'm accepting of everyone, right? Whether or not you accept bacon in your life, I still love you, right? But if you talk shit about bacon, you'll feel the wrath. And so all this guy sends me a message. He's like, this freaking wall of text about how the being within the pig's life and all this stuff. I was like, what if the pig died of natural causes? I just asked him that question because I wanted to see what he said. But yeah, it's so funny how people get all uppity about shit like that. And then I was like contemplating going full savage mode with him, being like, so there's like 20,000 kids a day who die from preventable causes. Do you give a fuck about them? Because let me see what activity you're doing to prevent that. So anyway, that's my typical Sunday morning.
That's the end all be all. Like seriously, like if this one time, like I was driving and I was trying to pull in this parking lot, and this lady like tries to pull in, and I pull in front of her, right? And she got all pissed off. And I get out and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing to end child suffering? Okay, seriously.
I gotta get into Fleet Farm ASAP and get my damn tractor supplies because I got a world to save.
I'm trying to buy a fucking plasma cutter, okay? Right.
And that lady's like, shut up, I'm late for church.
It's hilarious.
And therefore you won.
Hey, that's a good one. If you're checking out in the grocery store and you need to you want to cut, just be like, hey, would you mind if I cut? Because I'm a technical distributor and I'm trying to end child slavery, poverty, and abuse. And
See,
need
what
to
I
cut
do-
everywhere in this line.
Okay, this is actually my solution to just be more efficient. You know those big cages you can put on the front of your pickup truck so that it doesn't get dented? Just the cage takes the damage. I just get that, but I put a little TechnoTutor sticker on it. And so that way when I ram somebody, if you do it well enough, it actually imprints them. It's like a mid-speed imprint, puts it on their car so they remember who
Free
got 'em.
advertising.
Yeah, free advertising, and then I just get the parking spot.
That's closing.
that's
creative as
closing.
fuck. That's genius.
Yeah. I mean, preparing to become a dad here, I gotta level up so that when I look at leveling up,
Speaking of being a
that's what
dad,
came to my mind.
speaking of being a dad, are you gonna lie to your kids about God?
Well, let me think long and hard about that. No.
I mean, I'm not even gonna ask about Santa Claus. That's a foregone conclusion. Obviously, you're gonna lie to them about that.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day too, that
Wait,
leprechaun.
what's the lie? Oh, it's a leprechaun.
Hey, one day when my son does get old enough and can appreciate the context, I'm definitely showing him that YouTube video called Leprechaun in Mobile, Alabama. If you have not seen that video,
It was a leprechaun. It was
that's
climbing
some-
the trees.
that's some damn good entertainment. But yeah, no. So
Black
Yeah,
people
no,
are
I-
afraid of the weirdest things. Like leprechauns, snow. It's like just weird. I guess it's just stuff that's
For white people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like leprechauns are for Irish people, so they're like, I'm fucking with that.
You won't catch us on the ice doing
Snow,
hockey.
you're like, Swedish
No.
people.
Yeah, there's
Mm-mm.
very few black hockey players.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's like one token black guy.
Dude, if is there?
Yeah,
There's
God,
like
please tell me,
two.
please tell me his nickname is Black
I'm
Ice.
pretty sure he's French.
That would actually be really cool.
Black
like-
ice.
It's like super dangerous. You can't like, you know what I mean?
That's hilarious.
That would be
That-
awesome.
that is
Dude, I would
really
Cameron,
make
the way your
my-
mind works, you should write movies one day down the road. Like you'd be really good at like character and plot development. That'd be really funny.
No,
Just no.
they would never get produced.
That's true.
No,
That
no.
is true.
We would
I would just
produce
get
that.
notes back from the person I sent it to, and it'd just be like homophobic, racist. So
Right-wing
maybe
extremist.
once we've taken over the world,
Mhm.
once we've convinced everyone to stop believing in God and to be racist and all of that, then we can do it. Then I will write movies.
Everyone just stop so we can write these movies. Please.
Stop. Please
Please.
just stop it.
Gosh.
We need to write the movies. Well, no, but I ask in all sincerity about the point with your child and God, because I mean, you know, what are you going to tell them? Like, oh, okay, actually, I have a great story. Okay, I have a great story. So Katie's a part of this homestead group, right? And for those of you who don't know, in Texas, oh, hold on. It was on quiet mode, so it like does the noise canceling. It sounds so artificial. I'm like, why do I feel like I'm in a bubble? I don't know. So I put on active mode. Anyways, what was I
Active mode is
saying?
anyway.
Or I said active mode. It's actually called aware mode. So it's like aware. It'll put noise canceling. Yeah, I would not have got these headphones if I knew that they were so like sophisticated. I thought they were just normal noise canceling, but they're like, yeah. Anyways, where was I?
Homestead group.
So she's a part of this homestead group, okay? And for those of you, like I'll say, for those of you who don't know, in Texas, there's been a really big drought, right? Because of climate change. I don't know. Anyways, so there's been this big drought and it's been like not a lot of rain. It's been rain. It rained that other day for a little bit, but apparently it's supposed to be like torrential downpour flooding level, like for like 6 days or something, like maybe starting today or tomorrow or something, right?
Oh,
So like
that's
next
cool.
week.
Build
this
that
week or
ark,
next week or
Cameron.
whatever.
You're like Noah.
Yeah, well, so she said somebody put in there, they were like, oh, all this flooding's gonna happen, right? And then somebody wrote, it's because of all of the Christians in Texas who have been praying for rain of all summer. And they were all like, yes, praise God, yes, he's answered our prayers. That's what they were all saying, right?
Mhm.
And so we were talking about that, and I was just, well, let me get y'all's thoughts on that. Like,
Let's pray,
Wow.
guys. Let's pray.
How do you
It's
argue?
just,
that?
just a convenient story.
see, but the thing is, it's not about even arguing whether it's true or not, because someone who's convinced is convinced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, um,
Have you ever
Yeah, I mean,
watched
we-
the Weather Channel? Like, it's so funny. Like down here, whenever there's a hurricane coming, they do the same thing every year. They hype it up. It's always like, this is the biggest hurricane Central Florida has ever seen. It's going to be unlike anything that's ever happened in Central Florida. Every year they do the same line, and they're like,
Do they make cool graphics and stuff too? If it's got like a new name, it's like Spotlight, Hurricane.
yeah, it's
Irene.
kind of like Christmas. Like every year, it's the most magical time, and it's like it's the same shit we did last year. How's it
Hold
gonna
on,
go
hold
again?
on, hold on.
you're gonna
You
have to
know where
evacuate."
Christmas comes from, Cameron.
Satan's butthole.
No,
That's
no,
so
no.
funny. I
That's
just had the same
monkeypox.
thought.
That's monkeypox. My
Yeah.
gosh.
I think Little Nas X is patient zero.
Oh geez.
See, this is what we okay, but let me answer Asa's question from my perspective. Okay. It's not about arguing whether it's true or not, because you can't, you know, it's more like this. There's been this whole drought, and I follow like a lot of different people on YouTube, and some people I follow are like ranchers in Texas that talk about what they're going through and everything, and like cattle are dying because of heat exhaustion and like lack of water. Like Katie was telling me, she was like, I was wondering why the fuck our okra was like not growing very well, and it's like, oh yeah, because the drought. It makes sense, because like before our okra was like amazing when we lived in Houston. So anyways, all these points, right? And think about this, like here's how I look at it. Okay. Oh, and I was like joking around with it too, because it's like, okay, so God finally answered our prayer, so now he's going to destroy all the fucking crops by like flooding everything with water, which is like, we don't need a whole, it's like if you didn't eat for 6 weeks and you have a buffet one day, that, how does that help you? Okay, first of all, so the logic makes zero sense. Second of all,
wait. Also, I know those same people are praying that something happens where Trump gets back into office. So yeah,
They clearly don't know how to measure either, or like be very specific of how much water is needed.
but there's all these farmers who had to sell off cattle because they can't feed them. Do you see what I mean? So they have to sell them off, and it's all this stuff. So what that's doing,
They just
is it's-
overprayed. They just overprayed a little bit.
well, what it's doing though is it's making it so that the big
Too
cattle
many people
companies,
prayed.
it's making it so that the big cattle companies or the big food companies or whatever dominate more.
Mhm.
Right? Because I mean, think about it, because you don't have, the small guys have to sell off, they can't come back from it, and now you just have everything is coming from one source, which means more, all of that shit. Okay, but here's how I look at it, the pattern, right? That would be like, this is no different, because what is God? It's supposed to be like the thing who takes care of us, guides the seasons, the rain, the whatever.
It's like the
okay?
father you never had.
Right, exactly. That's gonna hit some people really hard right now.
Dude, all of a sudden after you said that, I believe in God now. I really want that.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Imagine this. Imagine as a parent, okay? Oh yeah, because we were, that was the missing key. Because Katie, we were like, why didn't God give rain the whole fucking time? Like they were praying, and she was like, oh, because he was testing their faith, right? Okay, that's what they would say. They'd be like, oh, he
Yeah.
was testing us. Like that would be their justification. Okay. Now think about this. Let's just take a different story. Let's say as a parent, I told my kids, like, look, you can't have dinner this week. And for like 6 weeks, I did not let them have dinner. So they were always constantly hungry, like not getting enough nutrition, which is going to have a long-term effect on their health, right? They're developing. It's not like an adult where you've already developed. It's like, and you can just recover. It's like a child doesn't get that nutrition. Their brain doesn't develop to the next point, right? So 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever, right? And then at the end of it, I'm like, all right. And every night they're begging me. They're like, please, please, I need this. I need to eat. Like I'm hurting here.
and you just
And then
don't
fin-
respond.
And I just ignore it. And then at the end of the 3 months or whatever, I go, all right, you know what? Tonight, we're going to fucking Golden Corral. You guys know what that is?
Yes.
Or
It's what's
never
like,
actually
it's
been
like
to
this
one, but I've seen it.
buffet, it's like whatever. It could be a good one. All you can eat. You can have whatever the fuck you want, as much as, in fact, I'm gonna no. Right. So
I'm gonna cram it
much
down
food
your
is
throats.
more food than you can possibly eat right now, right? Okay. And then they're like, wait, but I was asking you for food. I was like, I've heard you. I know you're hungry, so I'm gonna give you food. And you're like, but I was asking for it this whole time. It's like, I was just testing your love for me.
That's such a
Right?
beautiful story.
Like I was just testing your love for me. Like, but now you love me, right? Because I'm giving you all this food. And they're like, yes, I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's like, yeah, I was just testing. Like, wouldn't anybody, even anybody who believes in all that stuff, wouldn't they be like, that's a very abusive parent? But why won't you apply that same logic to the parent of all of us, apparently, who's like, now as a parent, I actually have to go to work and make money in at some level to be able to buy the food. But God doesn't have to put any effort whatsoever into it. And he's still, after how many thousands and hundreds of thousands or whatever, millions of years, he's still sitting there going, I just need these people right now to acknowledge me. Like as if, like, imagine the self-esteem of God.
You know what it
That he can't
reminds me
just
of?
be so like he can't just be but no, but they have to freely choose. They have to freely choose it. It's like that's not free choice. That's fucking extortion. That's what's the word I'm looking for?
No, that's a good word. It's like the mafia just coming over.
Like here's how you would freely choose it. Okay. You give the person everything they want and let them decide if they love you or not. And they don't even know if it was from you. Why would, like, do you love somebody simply because they provide for you? Is that it?
Funny because I see a lot of people relatively like the ratio of people that I know that believe in God and the percentage of them who always try to like, here, take this, like take it. It'll make me so happy if you take this thing. That if you accept this gift, that will show. If you don't accept this gift, you're hurting me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that kind of attitude. It's the same thing.
Same correlation. Yeah.
It reminds me sort of like, you ever hear that story? Oh, actually, Dave Chappelle tells this story in one of his stand-ups, but it's like in this book about a pimp.
The one about the crackhead, right?
Not the crackhead.
He's like, I need more crack. You can't find crack. Then he takes all the crack. That's exactly it. Huh.
A pimp named Slickback. Is that it?
It's the pimp, but a pimp named Slickback, I think, is from the Boondocks. But,
Oh,
yeah.
oh yeah, the pimp story. I know which one now.
Yeah, but basically, it's like in order to get a woman to like, or one of his hoes, let's use the right vocabulary here. In order to get one of his hoes to like fall in line and be extremely loyal to him, he would beat them with a coat hanger, and then give them a warm bath with some like, I don't know, whatever.
Like Epsom salts or whatever will relieve.
No, it wasn't the salts. It was like some like painkillers, and they would take these painkillers and they would just like melt, and then they would have this appreciation for him. And he literally said this. He's like, they'll forget that you were the one that beat them.
You know, you're literally describing my childhood minus the painkillers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I remember the time when my mom was spanking me with her hand, and I was like 7 or 8, and I was like, or maybe 6, or I don't know, whatever I was. It was young. And I just was like, one day it was separate. This is a separate point. I was just telling her one day, I was like, it doesn't hurt when you spank me. Because my mom was a small, petite woman, right? And she was like, oh, okay. And then next time she used a coat hanger.
Yeah.
Like, oops.
my mom figured out by herself that it didn't hurt when she spanked with her hand.
I had
because you're sitting there like on your Game Boy going, ow, ow, ow.
Well, because my oldest brother was like pretty big, like he's a pretty big dude. But then that's when the pot spoons, the rolling pins all came out. But what Drake's sharing is a really good story, though. It's a really good story. This is like real world, like street application. Like he would beat the shit out of his prostitutes, and then be like, "Hey, I got you," and then give them the relief, and then they were tied to him.
But so, now imagine,
but it's like it's a psychological abuse. It's a psychological tie. It's the same way that these people are responding to, like, oh, I couldn't have it, and then you gave it to me. It's like, oh, so yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Now it's like that's essentially how everyone's living.
But then imagine, like, I'm just giving a hypothetical. Like, imagine the women start doing it to their kids, and then their kids start doing it to their kids, and to the point where they don't even know why they're doing it. It was like the pimp originally was like knew why he was doing it. It was on purpose to control, but now they're just doing it because it's like tradition.
I mean, that is what happens.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that it's like, but it's just what we believe, and that's what we do. And like, and so like you don't realize like you only believe it because it was put into you with emotion and with fear and everything when you were like in your first 0 to 7 years, where it's like you're being programmed and from the beginning as a computer, there's nothing in there. And it's like, once you make it a Windows computer, without a lot of effort, it's not going to change to suddenly be a Mac. Like it's too much, it's too far gone. You're gonna have to really go back and start undoing some stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. And you have people who, you know, let's say sometimes we have people who come into the group and then they can't handle the pressure. That's what it really comes down to. And they'll say all kinds of things about like, I don't know, like people will project and blame all kinds of stuff. right?
You guys hear that sound?
Yeah, what's that noise?
I think it's
Is that-
his AC.
Oh,
Is
is
that
that me?
Cam's
Y'all can hear
AC,
that?
Yeah.
Is it like really loud?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like a refrigerator just turned on.
Damn.
Is your refrigerator running?
That's good. Say something, Cameron.
Did you say
Oh.
that's good?
No.
It was gone for a moment.
Maybe that's just because of noise cancellation. Suppress background
Cameron
noise.
just tunes it out in his own ears. He's
Hold on,
like,
let me try this real
"What's
quick.
not happening?"
It says auto. What about now?
Nothing
No,
changed.
still hear it.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
It
There you
just
go.
turned off.
Hey,
Right there.
It's silent now.
But then when I talk, maybe you hear it.
No,
very,
it's
very
perfect.
like yeah. No,
Okay,
you're
I'm gonna
fine.
leave it there then. I
this
feel
is
like the
God
medium-
messing with this podcast because you are speaking badly in His name.
Oh,
No, it's
man,
like
dude.
the
Dude,
they're
fuck
having
this.
an
I'm
issue
out of
in
here.
the
I'm going.
building.
I'm going.
He's going to church or whatever he goes
Asif's
to.
gone. Oh.
Asif, what did they go to?
but Asif,
Mosque?
you grew up Muslim.
Mosque.
Oh, okay. My
Asif
bad.
grew up
Sorry if
Muslim,
I offended you.
So you know all like the fear and stuff of God. That's but and it's like it's not that that doesn't happen on the Christian side. It's just
Way more hardcore with this level of vocabulary.
Okay,
it's like
It's
it's like
specifically
if I'm wrong.
Guyanese culture. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like there's a lot less bullshit about it's about love.
Yeah.
It's more like
That's
it's
so
for your
true.
good. Yes, I'm beating you now, and it's because you need to be obeying me because of authority. It's more like an authoritative than but it's love and like it's about we accept you and all
Yeah,
this bullshit.
I
right?
really don't remember that. I remember it all like, and again, I'm talking about in the context of my Guyanese family, right? It was all about like, you're gonna go to hell. That was really
all
the
fear.
yeah.
So I think if you think about
That's what I remember.
Islam as like the next evolution after Christianity, it's like let's get rid of this love bullshit.
Yeah, good for
Let's just
them.
go
They figured
straight
it
to the
out.
fear.
They figured it
Jeez.
out.
But I've
Sounds-
seen this happen to so
sounds
many
like-
people, especially the Muslim guys, where whether they come into our group or not, like I've just seen people where there's so much fear in there. And then when they start to challenge it, the ego, it takes back over and like they go with the fear and they go with like what is safe and secure. And then it's like they go even more hardcore with like, I believe in God, because like they're just thinking that there's this God that's going to punish them. And I see like when people listen to like something like your wish is your command, or they listen to some kind of law of attraction where they start to learn that your thoughts at some level influence reality, they start flipping out at a certain point because here's what happens. At first, it's like a euphoric thing. It's like I can create anything I want. This is amazing. And you start feeling
I'm
so
God.
good. And well, you're hype. Yeah, exactly. You're hyping yourself up. You're getting all positive. You're building that up. And then you crash because it's not sustainable because it was artificial. And then you get to the low point, which is the negative experience. And then you say, oh, I'm being punished by God. Yeah. But you wouldn't have thought that if someone hadn't programmed you in the first place as like a trap door that, or I'm trying to say like when that comes up, that would be like the reasoning process.
Right.
Mm.
No one taught you the mechanics of it. It's like if you went up on a roller coaster, you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And you're like, what the fuck? What did I do wrong? You're like, that's the part. That's
Can't you see the
literally what
track
you were
of the-
doing. Like,
yeah.
but like no one explained it and you didn't understand or whatever.
Huh.
So that's why I was asking you, Mitch, like, are you going to lie to your kids about God? Because like, imagine you're one of the, like 1,000 people, whatever, who on a daily basis makes the major decisions that influence like everybody's lives.
Mhm.
And Christians, as much as they want, or Muslims or whoever, as much as they want to act like it's all in God's hands. And why the fuck do you ever complain about Trump or Biden or anybody?
And why do you pray?
Why do you? Well, I mean, that's another story because obviously God is extorting you for your prayers. But I'm saying, like, why are you concerned at
prayer.
all
Give me that
about
fucking
anything
prayer.
anyone ever does? Because there is a point within everybody where there is a common sense where there's like, yeah, but at some level, we're doing something. It's just like we've talked about before, at the very big levels you can't understand. You're like, okay, at a certain point, I just have to put that in God's hands because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, right? But like, imagine if you were building a house and all you knew was like you'd lived in a house. You didn't know anything about building a house. So you go buy some concrete, you go buy some wood, and you're like, yeah, I don't really know what to do from here. So just gonna send it out to the universe, to God, whatever, they'll take care of it. It's like, no, you find the person who understands like the architecture part, the building code. You know what I mean? You get to the person who does understand that stuff. They're not a genius. They just have studied and learned that vocabulary.
You know
Or
what
from your
it is?
perspective, you're like, I don't know what the fuck that is.
Like the major problem with a lot of people is that the information in their minds exists as one single node that's not connected to anything within the network. You know what I mean? Like it's just like they'll get a certain perspective, because I was just talking about this with like Alan this morning of just how
Did you end up
uh,
sleeping over there?
yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yesterday I was at a clubhouse, so we ended up going to Drake and Christine's after. Their place is awesome, so nice. And then yeah, Alan was passed out. The way he sleeps is so funny.
Wait, you're telling me Alan passed out? That's totally out of character.
Yeah, what?
I think every time I've seen Alan, like within an hour, he's like sleeping. Like, he's up
Too much
there.
processing.
He's probably asleep already. He's listening.
Shout
his
out to
podcast.
Alan. I don't know if he'll listen to this one this week or if it'll be like a year from now when he gets to this point. I don't know.
But no, we were just talking about like how you can read autobiographies and biographies and get a lot of information that way. But what a lot of people will do is they can't process information in the way where it's just like taking it from this angle and this angle and building a picture out of it and understanding like what's important, right? Where they'll just see like, oh, that's a nice story and this is a nice story, but they can't make connections between those things in the context of what we're talking about. It's just like people will create this, well, they'll be given these stories of Santa Claus and then the story of like God does this and life is this and that, and they make no connection whatsoever as far as their responsibility within it, how they play a role, how this all ties together, what like the actual context of why is religion even a thing? Like just like from the perspective of what would be the purpose of it, what does it serve as its purpose, its function, like what's the result of it, not necessarily.
Well, that's like the meta, you know what I mean? It's like when you're actually looking at the pattern versus just being in it.
Right.
It's like, but it's a difference of vocabulary. Like think about a teacher in a school versus a superintendent. The teacher is sitting there going, this is about learning and teaching the kids and everything and helping them grow. What do you think the superintendent's thinking?
It's like, I need to get as many seats in these classrooms as possible because that's how we get paid.
Right. He's like he's like, yeah, that actually is irrelevant. As long as we hit these things and we can.
That's
so it's like a whole nother level. So when you look at the people in our world who are at positions where they can make decisions about supply chains and stuff like that, even like with the drought and stuff and climate change, if you start studying, you start to realize the elite have been fucking with the weather for a long time. And now we're looking at the consequences of that. So imagine being able to be like, wow, guys, so crazy, like how the weather's so fucked up because of climate change, like we need to like do all this extra stuff. And you're like, but people can't see that. So they're arguing about climate change.
Yeah.
And then anybody who talks about the elite have been fucking with the weather, like, oh, that's conspiracy theory. So you have all these ways. So then what is that equivalent of that for like these, as I call them, the lost sheep?
Oh,
Because everybody knows we all just want followers. We don't want any to want to actually ever think for themselves, right? Because our whole starting point is to create a world full of followers, right? Not children who are autonomous and effective at processing, right? So it would make a lot of sense if I were to totally support somebody just being a follower and not understanding anything. Because that way, when they have kids, they can totally support them to be totally autonomous and process information and like take direction over this world. That would make perfect sense in alignment with my starting point, right?
And I know you're going somewhere with this, but I
forgot where I was going.
It just kind of reminded me of like that point of what's considered conspiracy theory is just like, what's interesting is if your message gets spread out the most, then anything else will be conspiracy theory. Even if you're the one who conspired to bring about this message, but you have the power to get it out there as ubiquitous as it is, as long as everyone else is accepting of it, it's just like, oh, okay, everything else is the conspiracy. It's like, no, you just bought in on the advertising that I was doing, like, and it's really interesting just considering that point. Somebody was telling me over the weekend, one of my students was telling me that their dad just bought one of these new trucks that's an electric truck. And it doesn't come out, I think, until like, I don't know, a few months or
Is it
something like
is it
that.
a Raptor?
Not a Raptor. It's like a
Rivian.
Okay, I know what you're
Rivian.
talking about, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, this is my first time seeing it. Right? And then like we got on like a rip of just like, okay, let's look at all the new technologies that are coming out. And he was like just so fascinated by this and that or whatever. There's one that was like I think it's supposed to be a Dodge Challenger or maybe a Charger. I'm not
Charger.
sure.
Charger would make sense.
It's the Charger. It's electric, and so they
Called
did
electric
like
Charger.
a digital engine sound.
Right,
so
because
that
you know
it
the
still
the
has-
whole purpose of getting a Charger or a muscle car is just like you want to hear that like it's like shaking and shit like that. It's electric, so it doesn't have any of that shit. So they built it in. They literally put in like a fake engine so that it could make these weird electric engine sounds that just sounds like a vacuum cleaner. Like you put a vacuum cleaner on. Avery would love it. You put a vacuum cleaner on, it's just like.
It's like more annoying than before.
It is. It is. But it made me realize, like, or it kind of just brought to my attention, hey, that sound's coming back up again. By the
You
way,
know, Dyson was working on an electric car.
that sound is back.
That's what the Charger sounds like.
That's
Yeah.
it, isn't
That's the Dodge Charger.
it?
Did you know Dyson was working on an electric car?
You got it in your office right now.
Yeah, it just arrived. Yes, I'll be there in a moment. Thank you. I'll mute myself while it's on.
Okay. But why don't you just turn off your car?
I can't.
It's autonomous. It's self-driving.
It's AI.
Yeah.
Self-aware.
Hey, it's off now. Oh, wait, never mind.
But I was
It's
just
so weird. When I click this button, it turns.
I was realizing this point of like, you know, how people will go see the latest technology. They'll go look at the latest robots, the latest cars, the latest iPhone, MacBook, whatever, right? They'll go and like they're fascinated by the latest technologies, right? And usually there's a whole press release for it, right? But just in general, people want to know like, oh, this is the new thing that's coming out, right? And I was just considering this in the context of like the conversation that I had with Max like 2 nights ago, right? And it's funny to me because like he started texting me in the morning, and then like throughout the day he was dropping me voice messages like, hey, when are we gonna chat? Like, can we chat later today? And I was giving him a time, and then like he was trying to persuade me of like, can we do an earlier time? And like I was giving him context of like, here's what I'm doing during that time. I've got a meeting, all that, right? And then when we had our conversation, he was just like really present. Like I worked with a lot of 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, like 6-year-olds. Like I've spent a lot of time with children, and the level of conversation that I can have with him is just like, it surprises me every time. Every time it's just like, whoa, just the fact that you can do this or speak in this way, or that you have this in your vocabulary, or even just the way that he would listen, which is something that is not happening at that age. The way that he would listen to, and I was speaking to him as if I was speaking to one of you guys, like I'm speaking to an adult, where it's just like, hey, here's what we discussed on our meeting, and here's why I thought it would be supportive. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And like knowing those social cues, you know, and not being like, yeah, whatever. Like, I just want to talk about this. Like, it was actually a coherent conversation that we were having. That, and also with Seneca as well, for 3 years old, holy shit, the level of conversation that she's having is just like years ahead of her actual physical age. But within the context of what I'm saying, it's like, that's like looking into the future. You know, like people get excited about looking at these new technologies because it's kind of like glimpse into the future, and you kind of imagine what's the future going to be like when, you know, this comes out to the world or whatever, like it's marketed and all that, everyone gets one or whatever. But like having these conversations with the Technotutor kids, it's like that's looking into the future. That's like wow, but it's here.
You know
it's
what's funny is like basically that, you know, when we're at home, our phones are charging or whatever, and what our kids will do is they'll go and they'll get our phone, and like, you know, they obviously know that they can't do that when we're not around, that they wouldn't be able to, right? So we're aware of what's going on, but they'll go and then they'll start messaging like you were talking about, right? Like messaging you or whatever.
Mhm.
So the other day, Seneca starts, she just likes to play with like those little silly faces, like, you know, like they're called animo or emojis or animojis or whatever, like
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the messenger on iPhone.
Yeah.
And she starts, but you have to go into a text conversation to do it, right? So usually she goes to Katie, and she that way, because that's what we told her, you know, like you can send Katie stuff and it doesn't matter. But then she ended up sending him to Keith the other day, right? And she's like saying all this, like doing all these little things, like characters, and like, you know, it's really cute. Like there's this one, you know, like the little dinosaur one. Have you
Yeah.
seen these? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. She
Right?
sent them to me.
And it's so funny. She opens the dinosaur and it goes, "I'm a dinosaur," and it's like super cute, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, she's sending all these like random messages to Keith, right? And then I start seeing messages pop up, like voice messages and stuff, and I start playing them, and it's Ben. And Ben's going, "Hi, Seneca. Yeah, I really liked that last message that you sent. That was really funny. I like it when you do those ones. Can you send some more of those, please? Because they're really funny and I really like that. Thank you." You know, and then like, then he's like sending me messages from Keith's phone, like talking to Seneca, right?
On your phone.
Yeah.
Like super
your phone.
articulate. Yeah, like on the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And,
super
and how old's
articulate.
Ben? He's also
I think
3.
he's the same age as Seneca,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah,
speaks
yeah.
super
3,
clearly,
4.
like very, like very clear. I think they have the same month
Birth month?
birthday.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
so. I think they're like literally the same age.
somebody shared that they're like 2 weeks apart or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's about
that's
to
really
turn
cool.
4.
He speaks really clearly, like high vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, it was just really funny to see like how they're communicating with each other, right? And it's like, you know, actually I was thinking about this earlier or this morning or last night about, I wanted to look up like, because it's like I already know, but I want to see like the actual physical evidence, because I was around a lot of kids when I was growing up and everything, and just, you know, being in education, you're around a lot of kids and all that. But I want to see like a classroom of kindergartners, because I think that's the age Max would be at, right? Kindergarten,
Yeah.
pretty sure, or maybe
Yeah.
he would be going
Going
into
into grade
first,
1. Yeah.
right? Because he's turning 6 in October. Can
Okay,
someone
so-
verify that?
No, he'd be like here in Florida, he'd be in kindergarten.
He'd
Because
be in kindergarten.
he'd be in kindergarten
What
because
age
the cutoff
do you
would be
Senior kindergarten. Because I have an
September.
October birthday. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would, yeah.
You must be
Senior
5 years
kindergarten.
old on or before September 1st to enroll in kindergarten. This
Exactly.
is for Texas, anyways.
Yeah,
Wow, I
so
like how it
same-
gave me
same here in
Texas.
Florida.
That's crazy. That's my first answer. It's weird. But
Perfect knows.
Google is omniscient and
Knows you're in
omnipotent. Cameron.
Texas.
so
That's a
he would
simple
just
one.
be he would basically be one of the, yeah. Oh, they must admit children aged 5 to 6
In kindergarten?
kindergarten. Yeah, for in Texas. So because his birthday's at the end of October, so he would be one of the older kids in kindergarten,
Right.
or he'd be one of the young kids in first grade, right? And I was just thinking about like what would because I've been around kids that are his age, and I'm like, I'm not trying to say this in a demeaning way. It's just like comparatively, I'm like, okay, those kids are retarded. I'm trying to say like, and I don't mean it like in a mean way. I'm just saying like comparatively, if Max is a normal 5-year-old, then the average 5-year-old I see is retarded. Like they're like,
Yes.
"Hey, what you doing, daddy?" You know, like Max is like, "Cameron, would you please go and get me some milk, please? Because I'm really thirsty and I would like some milk." And I'm like, "Well, you know, you can get that yourself, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, but the gallon is full and it's too heavy for me and I will probably spill it if I pour it." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'll help you with that." Because we're helping him develop like just doing it yourself if you can. Right? I mean, that's a little beyond that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like last night, Seneca had fallen asleep. Max got out of his bed because I was still reading to them. We just finished the second to last book in the robot novels for Asimov, right?
Yeah.
We were just at the very end, and he was like, I'm really hungry. And I was like, really? Because I knew he didn't eat a lot of dinner. I was like, all right, well, we can go you can go get some food, because I knew he was hungry. And I was like, well, how hungry are you? He goes, Cameron, it's literally 1% out of 100%. Right. And I really can't sleep. And I was like, okay. So we got up, went into the kitchen, right? And he was like opening the fridge, looking at it. And I was like, what do you want? He goes, what would be really nice right now, Cameron? This is like how he's talking to me. He's like, that sour cream with some chips. I think that would be good. He's like, but that's probably only going to fill me up maybe 2-3%. So we'll probably need something else. And I was like, well, let's start with that, right? So then he starts eating the chips, right? And then he's like, I'm going to need some of that pasta salad, because Katie had some pasta salad she made, right?
Yeah.
So I get some pasta salad, right? And he's like, yeah, that's probably only going to be another couple percent. So yeah, my body's just telling me I'm going to need more. Like, can you make some bread with jam? All right. So I get him a little slice of bread with jam, right? So he's eating, right? And I pulled up the stool. So he's up at the counter, and like eating. And I'm standing next to him, and I'm reading the rest of the iRobot book, or not iRobot, whatever the book is, right? I'm just kind of reading as he's eating, right? And then he's like, Cameron, would you like a chip? And I was like, no, I'm actually not hungry right now. And he goes, it's really satisfying, Cameron, with this sour cream on it. It's very good. I would really recommend that you have some. And I was like, well, the thing is, Max, I said, for me, I want to go to sleep without a bunch of food in my belly. I don't want my body to be digesting, because I'm older than you. And also I didn't really take very good care of my body when I was younger. And so like my body doesn't process food as effectively as yours will, or as it does. Right. So I was like, and I explained to him like the point of self-mastery of like not even feeling like it's an option. Like, it's like, I'm not tempted or something, I mean, just explain to him, like, I don't need to eat. Right. And he was like, well, just have one chip, just have a chip. Right. And he's like trying to persuade me. Right. And it's funny because I'm like reading this book, and he's like, Cameron, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you want to feel satisfied in your belly? And I'm like, why do you ask? He's like, well, I just think if you had one of these chips, it would feel so good. And he's like trying to persuade me, right? Because it's like he wants me to have the meal with him, right? You know what I mean? That's what's going on. And I'm just saying, like, that to me is like just normal. Like, that's just how it is in our house, right? And I mean, so when we're around other kids that are like 5 or whatever, or even 6 or even older than him, they're like, it's like when you're talking to him, actually, you think you're talking to a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But to me, that's what a normal 5-year-old is now, because that's what we're around every day, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, my whole point was I want to look at what is the standard normal 5-year-old, 6-year-old. Like, what is that? Because maybe the other kids I'm seeing are just literally like really dumb. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased,
Well,
But-
okay. Think about this. Think of the level of insanity of certain, let's say, families or groups of people that would look at that situation and hear about Max, Seneca, Ben, the other Techno Tutor kids. And they would say, none of that matters. All that matters is if that child accepted Jesus, or if that child accepted the Quran or whatever. Where like they wouldn't even be able to see the real love within that, right? And the actual living of the principles and doing what would be best. And they can't even see that because they'd say, nope, all that matters is that kid, even though he can barely talk and he's 6 years old, that boy knows that he's been baptized in the blood of the Lamb. It's like that is some people's logic, or
What's
lack
really,
of logic.
what's really interesting about it is that people have different perceptions of God and what God looks like and what God is or is not or whatever. But none of that is discussed. It's just like this kind of like all-encompassing point of just like accept God, and
Accept something greater
this
than you that
idea.
has more responsibility than you.
Right.
And be a sheep.
Yeah. And like whatever your like, little things within that are like, oh, this is kind of the way I see God or whatever. That's fine. It's fine. But as long as you accept God, as long as you accept that point of there is
And
something.
that's the
greater.
point. And that's
Yeah.
the point, isn't it? Like if you were talking to a Christian, you're like, look, I'm not a Christian, but I do believe in God, and I believe that he's the old. They would be like, all right, cool. But if you're like, look, God's not real, then they're like, whoa, what the fuck? They get pissed off. It's like, but then the weird thing about it is, wasn't the whole point of why they love God is because he loves everyone unconditionally?
And that's why he's greater than me, because I don't love you.
They can't do it.
And like,
What-
what are we
what-
saying? The thing is, I don't. Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
Well, what's so funny is because someone can actually hear what we're saying is, let's create a system that gives to everybody unconditionally in the context of what is best for all. So we're actually the godly ones. It's so
That's
funny.
the point. And the difference is the other person who's apparently espousing this belief in God doesn't actually care about that.
Exactly.
They actually care about the image, the appearance.
The graven
They're
image.
actually running the program, and they're not and the difference is they will pretend like they love people, but they don't. And they'll
Right.
act
They
like
just
they're
give a
superior
fuck about
because
if
of
they
it.
get that pass into heaven or not. That's not even fucking real.
Like,
Yeah.
do you love your next door neighbors the same as you love your wife and your kids?
No.
What, like, is it necessary? But does that mean therefore that you should treat them with less dignity, and you don't want them to have all the things that you have and that they need? Like, do you need to feel love for somebody to be like, yeah, I think they should have what they need? Like, you see what I mean? And so
Yeah.
people, it's like this belief that because of the feeling of love, somehow that's going to change something. When in reality, the problem is love is an energy. And there's times where parents don't feel love for their kids. Like when their kids do something, especially that's something that the parent used to do, and they're seeing the kid do it, they get really angry at the kid. And there's that moment where they don't feel love for their kid.
Mhm.
They feel anger, frustration, whatever. But so therefore they don't love their kid anymore. But a parent wouldn't say that, because they know that the love that they have for their kid is actually more abstract than a feeling. They know
Right.
it's more of an actual care and concern. And so like when we say we love everybody equally, it's not like I'm going around with this feeling of I just see everybody, I just love them so much. But that's what everybody wants you to say. That's what everybody wants you to be if you actually want to make a difference in this world. They want you to be like this image of Jesus going around and just, come, brother, let us walk together and share a meal together and let us be in each other's presence. And you're like, so artificial. It's not real. Like there's nobody on earth like that. Why do we need that? Why don't we just have a system where everybody, it's like you walk up to the vending machine and you get a fresh apple. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, because you're hungry. Like, do you need the robot to be like, come, brother, I love you. We have embraced with you. It was like, you don't give a shit. You just need the fucking apple because you're hungry.
Right. Or is it like, do you accept me as your Lord and Savior? Is your social score high
Let us
enough?
say the
Have
magic
you been
words.
vaccinated?
Say the magic words. You're like, I love you. Like, there you go. Be on
I
your
love you,
way.
please. Thank you.
You're like, what the fuck, man? Yeah. Actually, I started watching in like 2-minute increments this movie called, it's like THX 1168 or some shit. I don't remember the
Why
exact
are you
name of it.
watching it in 2-minute increments?
Because
Is that the new
I-
way to watch movies?
No, I don't like want to sit down and watch a whole movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to sit and just, I got other things I want to focus on. So it's like, okay, I'm sitting here at the computer for a moment. I got to do something on the spreadsheet or whatever. Let me put a YouTube video on or something. And then I've only watched maybe 10 minutes of the whole movie so far. And I've had it for like a month. Okay. But I've read or heard that it's like one of the best science fiction movies ever made.
Mhm.
And it's made by George Lucas. It was his first film before he did Star Wars. Okay.
Oh.
And it's like an actual science fiction movie, not the Star Wars bullshit. Right. So being the science fiction snob that I am, I have to watch it, I suppose. So I'm begrudgingly watching it. No, but it's like a very stylized, like very minimal dialogue. Like it's like watching a Stanley Kubrick movie, kind of. When you watch it, you wouldn't be like, this is a George Lucas movie. There's no like, zing, pew, hey, you know, like it's not like, it's not like anything like that. It's like you're watching some fucking weird Stanley Kubrick movie from the 70s where it's like real weird. Anyways, I brought it up because there's like these two characters, and from what am I gathering so far, it's like they live in a world where everyone's heavily medicated to kind of keep them just following their role in the system and not like questioning things, or that's just kind of what I'm getting from it because nothing is really explained. And like the wife of the guy, she's very clearly like tampering with his medication, like switching things out, and he's like, I don't know why I'm going crazy. And like what he does, he goes to this confessional booth and he sits down and like this recording comes on and it's like, he's like, share your troubles with me, beautiful servant of the Lord, and he's like, I'm here for you. And he's like, I'm just, I can't take it right now. I don't know what's going on. It's like, yes, tell me. And he's like, yeah, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I'm just so frustrated. It's like, yes. It is good and proper to share your secrets with me. And you're hearing all this like response, right? And at the end, it kind of interrupts him. And it's like, you are a good person. You are cleansed. Do this penitence and you will be fine, or whatever. It does this whole speech at the end, right? And you're like, okay, so it's like on-call robo priest forgiveness. It's kind of, you know what I mean? You might imagine like if it was a Muslim one and it would be like a different robot voice that would come on, right? So then you see the scene where she's like switching out his medicine later, right? And then later he goes back and he's kind of unloading again. And the robot runs the same script. It's actually not listening at all to what the guy's saying. It might be recording it, but it's not responding to, like, they're just talking over each other. The robot's going, yes, I am listening. And the guy's like literally just talking, going like, I don't know what to do right now. And the thing's just saying the same script, right? And then the guy leaves. And so it's clearly like it's showing the point of like forgiveness is just to go and like release your fucking back chat and the energy so you can just get back to work. And it's actually pretty cool, like what it's exposing and everything, right? But also it shows like the point of the medication and how if you're not on the medication, you start to like lose it because the environment you're in is not actually allowing you to like really be who you are. You know what I mean? Like really express yourself. So you have to be artificially programmed, medicated, and so forth to just stay in that little box. You know what I mean? And what religious people don't understand, and you could be religious or you could be spiritual, or you can just have some involved view of God. You don't realize that that's just the drug to keep you at some level in the box. And like we had someone recently, like this is why we were talking about this, who was making all these videos and stuff talking about how they've seen God and they've had these experiences, and they don't want to be a part of Self-Perfected and Techno Tutor because like we talk negatively about God. But like you just spelled out earlier, Mitch, like, okay, so what are we actually saying? We're saying don't use God as an excuse not to do everything you can to create a system that makes sure everyone has what they need, which is apparently the one thing God cannot physically do. Am I saying he doesn't have the power to do it? Well, not necessarily. That's up to you. If you think he does, then you have to ask yourself why he doesn't.
Right. What kind of God would do that? What kind of God wants to bank on your emotions? Oh, pray to me.
The only logical conclusion would be he's expecting us to do it. Okay, fine. That's all we're saying. All we're saying is don't allow the point of God to get in your way. And like with our kids, for example, I'm not going to lie to them because it creates a point of hope of like something else will do it.
Right.
I want my children to understand we are all collectively responsible for what happens in this world. Because like when you see suffering and you go and the child goes, well, but how come God is allowing that? And you're like, well, no, honey, it's because that little that chicken that the eagle just snatched up and flew away and like ripped its guts out. It's because the chicken didn't believe in God and didn't pray. Is that what you're gonna say? It doesn't make any fucking sense. Do you know what I mean? Why did that man break into that woman's house and rape her in front of her 3 children and tie her to the chair and then kill her in front of her kids? Because that happens. Like, oh, because she didn't pray. Like, I don't think she had time to pray. And don't you think she was probably praying like, please God, please let this stop. Please let this stop. And then God did it anyways, or God let it happen. And then you want to say that, oh, but I know God is real because when I was in a state of meditation that I've programmed myself to be in, I had an experience of seeing something that I have defined as beautiful and amazing. But what that means is you've systematically disciplined yourself to shut off your willingness to look at the actual shit that's going on in the earth. It's like, okay, imagine you went into a room, a very large room, like a ballroom, huge, right?
Oh.
And there was 100 people in this room. No, 1,000 people in this room. It's a huge room, right? Like you're at a conference and it's just like, you know, like standing room only almost, right? And everywhere you look, people are like punching each other, like grabbing each other, like clawing each other's eyes out, like stabbing each other, like raping each other, like just doing like unspeakable, horrible things to each other, right? And then over in one little corner, there's this beautiful angel with wings, and it's just like magnificent and glowing. And you just kind of like go and you just like walk through all those people and just sit there and you're like watching it. And you're like, isn't reality amazing? Isn't God just so amazing and wonderful? And just, yeah, there is a God, and God does take care of all. And meanwhile, like everything around you, like there's the people like raping each other, murdering each other. And like there's literally, you're watching children being raped right in front of you, like right at the feet of this angel. There's a child like being molested forcibly with like a glass bottle. And you're like, yeah, but this beautiful angel, look at the robes and the glowing hair, and look at the wings. They're so real and like feathery, and I can touch them. It's so amazing. And like, I feel so good right now. And I must spread the word. And you're like, what are you talking about?
But that literally is how people feel. Like, it's like, oh, you have to look for the beauty and just focus on that. And like, you can't focus on all this other crazy nonsense that's going on. Like, you just have to like, that,
You know,
how
it'd be
else are
one
you gonna
thing.
feel
It'd be
good?
one thing if you literally never saw those people. Like when you were a baby, someone sat you down, put blinders on you, and made you look at the angel. And you can't hear anything else, you can't see anything else. And then you're like, you develop and all you can see is that angel. Then someone comes by and says, hey, didn't you hear something weird? They're like, you know, I have always noticed there's these weird screaming sounds. I always felt something's not right. Like, okay, can I show you? And they're like, yeah. And then you like turn around, let me show you. And you see all this. This is reality. You're being distracted by this. And they're like, oh fuck, I don't like this. This can't be true. And I'm like, yes, but you have the power to stand up and go one by one and tell these people to stop. And here's why. Because even if what you see as this beautiful thing is real, then isn't it your responsibility now to tell people to stop what they're doing? Because they'll never be able to see what you see if they're still fighting each other. They'll never be able to see the potential of beauty and everything that you see, potentially. And then they say, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. And they go to a few people and people are like, how dare you fucking challenge me? And you're like, yeah, oh yeah, you know, you're right. That doesn't feel good. I don't like that. I want to go back and see the beautiful angels. Let me go back and see the beautiful angels. This is all that's real. All that's real is this beautiful angel. This is what's real. I like this beautiful angel. I feel so good and warm and fuzzy when I see it. I'm just going to focus on looking at that. That's the reality of people who have been exposed to what we're talking about and choose to go back and then just, no, you're talking bad about the angel. You said that angel isn't helping those people out there. And that wasn't, nope, didn't like that. That doesn't make me feel good and warm and fuzzy. But the reality is, even that whole analogy I gave is a false analogy, because that's not what's really happening.
Right.
What's really happening is you grew up in the middle of all those people. And you were told, if you ever question this situation, you will be punished. And there's something more powerful than you that will punish you. Do not challenge this. Do not question it. In fact, just look over here. Look at this angel over here. Don't worry about all this. Yes, this is happening. Ignore it. The secret is to just make yourself feel good by looking at that all the time. And that's where you make the choice of, you know what? I'm not going to worry about doing anything. I'm just going to go with what makes sense to me. That's my self-interest. I want to just do what feels good. When in reality, if you actually wanted that, don't you think eventually when this person kills that person and so forth, they're going to come and start fighting you? And you really think that angel's going to protect you? It's not protecting anybody else.
What would make you so special?
But that's it. That is the point. What it comes down to is the person that just wants to be special.
Right.
And what
Or
we're
like a
saying is,
prophet.
right, we're saying we're not special. I'm not special. You're not special. No one is special. We're all, it's like, that'd be like taking a tree out of the forest and be like, that's a special tree. I mean, the only time you ever hear shit like that is in fairy tales. There was the magical special tree in the forest, and if you come to it, it will give you everlasting life. And it's like, that's a fairy tale. It's obviously bullshit. Like, they're all just trees. Some have different properties. You can use some for, like, Katie wants me to make this big cutting board for like the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to look up, like, is there certain woods you shouldn't use or you can't use? And like, there's some really cool looking woods that like will leach out toxins. So you don't want to use those for cutting boards, for example. I wouldn't know that. Right. You have to, this is vegetation, right? So there's not special trees. The special point is like what you're putting onto it.
Yeah.
But the person wants to be special because they didn't get that from their parents. Like, they didn't get the point of, I just accept you. Do you know what I mean?
What's funny is, like, I remember in school, we were taught about, so I live in Florida, right? Grew up in Florida. We were taught about, I guess, Ponce de Leon, and how he was looking for this fountain of youth, and then came to St. Augustine, and here's a fountain here. Like,
Is that why all the old people go to Florida?
it is. 'Cause
That's
they heard this
crazy.
story and they're like, oh, it's in Florida somewhere. And they're just searching.
They get on their little
searching.
rascals. They're like,
That's their pilgrimage.
Can I drink from this fountain? What do you mean blacks only? No. Get out of here. I don't know if it was that one.
that one tastes like fluoride.
Yeah.
It's
The-
also interesting because it's like the point we were bringing up last time about how a lot of like people in third world countries and poor people are very religious. It's like, where are these beings? Like, wouldn't they be the ones praying the most to then summon some sort of encounter like that to be like, yes, God will say, or whatever, this angel is looking up for me and will provide food and all the things that I need. But yet that's just like, that's like 99% of the world like lives in that state still for the last like hundreds of years. You know what I mean? It's like, how is it that like a person in like our situation would have this encounter and be this special being? You know, wouldn't they have more of those encounters?
The reality is, it's just literal schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Like, when you start looking up what schizophrenia is, it's like your mind is now giving you visions that you've given permission that it's real. And you now start buying into it. And I did this research a long time ago, like it must have been like 5 or 6 years ago. And I started looking into like on YouTube, and I really highly encourage people to do this. Go on YouTube and start looking up real experience schizophrenia. I have schizophrenia, things like that. And not just like a video about like, from Boston, Medical University or some shit. Like, this is like actual people who have like a channel going like, I have schizophrenia. Here's what I experienced.
It's all on TikTok now too. You can find all sorts of, yeah.
Well, so I don't know about TikTok. I don't use that TikTok. I don't use TikTok. I'm not saying I don't know what it is. I'm just saying I don't have TikTok. I don't go on it. I only see stuff like from what people put on YouTube. So I'm just saying I like YouTube because you can have a 30-minute video where the person's just taking their time. Whereas with TikTok, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe there's some aspects where it's not like this, but it's highly, it's like, it's like, you got to go. It's time. You got to talk. You got to perform.
Yeah.
But like on YouTube, I'm talking about the videos where it's just the person like, okay, I don't really know where to start, but I just want to talk about my experiences, and like they're rambling and ranting, and then they get into the story and everything, right? Like, you want that kind of stuff, because you'll start seeing like there's different types of schizophrenia. There's ones where you just hear stuff, but like you hear it like you're hearing like that noise y'all heard earlier, right? It's like you're actually hearing a noise. That's what it sounds like to you, but no one else can hear it. Or you're
heard that
noise.
Like that. I heard that noise.
No, there was no noise.
I heard that.
There was no noise just then.
Oh shit.
But then there be people who literally see stuff. Like this one guy was saying, he's like, okay, so I'm having one of my schizophrenic episodes right now, and I just wanted to make a video and kind of talk about it as it's going through it, so you can see so you can hear like what it's like in real time. And it's like, right now, you can't see it, but sitting right there is the best way I can describe it is it's like a 12-foot tall demon, and they have like, it's like not clearly defined. It's almost like a mist, but you can sort of clearly define it if you don't look directly at it. And it's like dripping blood, and it's like growling at me. And I know it's not real, but it's right there. I can see it right there, you know? And like, that's, I mean, imagine like, it's just, oh, you're like, you look at it, you're like, oh, there's that fucking demon again. Now, what if somebody was like, there's actually there. It's actually real. Okay. So imagine somebody says like, I see Jesus. He sits with me. He's sitting there right now with me. Wouldn't you be like, okay, that person is hallucinating?
Yeah.
Because another person's like, I see Buddha right there.
They took LSD.
Well, wait. See, they're both seeing the beings, but it's how they perceive that being.
Yeah, it's the
so-
being of love, Cameron.
So
Come
that,
on.
that being is
So
real.
then there's- hold
they're
on.
just perceiving it.
So
Like,
there was this one person I was listening to their story, and they talked about how in one of their episodes, they were like walking around and they found this book. Okay. And when they opened the book, it was like speaking, it was like talking to them. It was like this whole book of instructions, like very detailed instructions. Like they were reading it. Like it was like as if you're actually reading a book with words, right? And then like later when they would look at it, it was just a normal book. Like when they weren't in a schizophrenic state. But while they were in the schizophrenic, it was giving them all these instructions. And it would say stuff to them like, you know, you have to go do this and such. And if you don't, then on such and such day, like your grandpa's going to die or something. So they would be like, I felt like I had to fucking do it. Otherwise, I didn't want someone to be hurt. And I didn't know, like, why take the risk? So they would buy into it. And that would amplify it. And then it would become, it's kind of like, okay,
Cam,
now I got you.
I'm having one of my schizophrenic episodes right now.
It's gone.
It's gone.
You're gone crazy.
I heard that noise and then I didn't as soon as I
Oh.
said that.
Okay, look, just say this. I accept Jesus.
I accept. Wait, you mean the gardener, Jesus?
Yes.
Like accept him into my house?
Accept him right now. Say you accept him. Say it out loud.
Jesus, you're accepted. You can come in. He's. I don't know if he heard me, but
He doesn't speak English.
he doesn't speak English.
Did it work?
He can't hear you.
I don't hear the sound anymore, so I guess. Yeah. Thanks. Got to talk to that gardener later.
So it's probably like annoying right now.
No, actually, it's
Okay.
quiet.
So I'm just saying like there's all kinds of levels of it. Clearly that wasn't real. Right? Like this guy finding this book and having instructions, right? And then there was other ones where it was like this girl I remember, and she was talking about how she heard this voice talking to her, and it was saying that it was God. And at first she was like, oh, this is crazy. And then at a certain point she would kind of listen to it and ask questions to it. And then eventually it explained to her that she was actually the reincarnation of Jesus, and she had a mission to save the world. And so it's like, imagine an actual voice, like suddenly you're sitting there and you hear like this voice, like, Christine, can you hear me? And you're like, the fuck is that? It's like, Christine. And you're like, and then you're like ignoring it, right? Next week you're sitting there, Christine, and you're like, it's that fucking voice again. Okay, I thought I was just making that up. And you're like, maybe something's wrong with me. I don't know. And you just ignore it, right? Next week, you're like, you hear this, Christine. You're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Who are you? And it's like, okay, now you're acknowledging me. Good. I wasn't sure if you would ever acknowledge me or not, but I'm here. I'm inside of you. And you're like, what do you mean you're inside of me? It's like, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm you in the future. Like, okay. I don't know what's going on with me. I'm losing it. Stop talking to me. Next week, Christine, you can't ignore me anymore. It's your destiny. You're like,
Sounds like some of the spiritual people that I follow.
you're like, what is this
I
fucking
used to
destiny?
follow.
What destiny? And they're like, you are here to save the world. I'm from you in the future. It's 2017. The world has ended in a nuclear apocalypse. I'm speaking to you from a crystal. You know, we've all been enslaved in crystals. Like, you are the key to saving the world. And you're like,
Christine's like,
oh, this
actually,
can't be happening. And like you start buying into it more and more, and you start talking to it, and it's just amplifying inside of you. And now you're starting to feel like, holy fuck, like my life has purpose. Like during the day, I just go to my little job and I work in this office, but nobody knows, like, I have this secret mission. And it's like, okay, at your office, somebody will come in wearing a red dress. You must talk to them. This is your next assignment. Don't fail. If you fail, then 3 days later, the world will end. And you're like, fuck. Right? So what's the odd, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, and this might sound silly to people, right? But go on YouTube and you'll find 10 people with the exact same fucking story.
So what's interesting is like I've had an experience like that with the book, where it feels like the book is talking to you, right? And it was it was when I was on acid. Just I read this book and I was just like, whoa, amazing, insane. And then like next day I read the book, it's like, it's not talking to me the same way.
See, I had a literal dream like that one time where I was
Yeah.
like, I found this book and I was like, and it just had this the truth in it. And it was so profound. But when I woke up, I'm like, what did it say? And it was like, it didn't say anything. It was just the feeling I got from it in the dream.
Right.
Mhm.
know?
Right. Exactly.
And so my point is like, what people will say is like, no, listen, I know you think I'm crazy because there's people who are schizophrenic, all this, but I'm not actually crazy. And it's like, dude, if you've ever taken LSD or mushrooms or been in love,
Oh, that's a good one.
because there's also schizophrenic people, and this was really interesting to me, where they described the way they experience the schizophrenia. It's not a sound, it's not a voice, it's not an image, it's feelings within them. It's very vivid feelings about certain things that sort of suggest certain ways to feel about some things. And it's like, there was one guy, man, it was insane. He was talking about this whole thing where he was in his room and he liked to make music and record music and stuff. And like, he started hearing this radio playing outside his window. And he was like, what the fuck? Like, so annoying. And he would go look outside and there would be no one out there. Cause he was like, my neighbors are fucking annoying. Like, they're playing this loud radio. And he would find out there was never a neighbor. There's no one out there. And he was like, what the fuck? And he kept participating in it. And eventually the radio was like, it was Obama speaking to him on a secret radio transmission, telling him all this secret plan he had to do. So the guy like ended up leaving his house and like going out like in like the wilderness, because he thought if he didn't, the government was going to get him and all this shit. Like, and he was like talking about how he like just kept escalating and escalating and escalating. You see what I'm saying? So imagine you have that going on within you, but also you have like charisma and you have the ability to influence people and speak in a certain way. You know what I mean? So you can then start influencing them that they're not special, but you are.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, you're the chosen one and they have, and so like, that's why you see all these fucking churches, like they're the messenger of God and all this shit. And like, I don't really have to worry about it, but anytime you're in a group, the fear is that someone's just trying to manipulate you for their own benefit.
Yeah, my
Unfortunately,
schizophrenia is cracking right now. It's like just
fortunately, I
trains,
know it's like trains, right?
Fucking, you got that vacuum cleaner in there. It's just insane.
It's like think about it. Parents do this with their kids. They make the kid, through very subtle points, make the kid think that the parent is special, that the parent knows everything. They don't do it on purpose. They may not tell the kid they know everything, but they make the kid think that. And then they have a crash later when the kid realizes they don't. That's why teenagers rebel. Right. And so like, even with ourselves, everything we're doing together in our group and everything, we're not any of us going like, I'm special. Like it's all about me. It's like, look, I'm studying this information. I've applied it. Here's what it has done. And it makes sense how we can change the system in this world. And it's like, we're not going, here is our holy book. We're going, look, I studied mathematics. I read these textbooks. They explain how mathematics works. If you want to learn how mathematics works, you have to read this textbook. That's all it is. It's not profound. It's just the reality of the mechanics of how things work. And if you don't study it, here's what happens. And I've seen it many, many times. You don't study, you don't apply yourself, you don't do the forgiveness. And this is the real key. The people who come into the group and don't actually do the forgiveness, or they do to a certain degree, then they stop when the pressure comes on. They stop actually doing the forgiveness and actually using the tools. Because what'll happen is the pressure of standing in a point of friction within reality, where you now actually have to change things. Do people want to change?
No.
Does the system want to change? Like,
No.
do the people who are benefiting immensely from the system want it to change?
No.
And do they trust anybody else? Like, even if they're realizing the system's collapsing, they don't fucking trust anybody else to do anything, because think about this. If the elite admitted that the system was collapsing, who's going to get the blame for it? And are they going to be allowed to be the ones who fix it if they admit that it's collapsing because of them?
No.
There's all these artificial reasons why it's collapsing, and that all gives them more control over the point, which is not going to work because their starting point is not self-awareness, self-realization. So the problem is every time you go to the next level, when I say next level, all I mean by that is more responsibility. Every time any of us goes to the next point of responsibility, the pressure comes back, just like you experienced at the last time it was really fucking hard. It comes right back and it feels like it's all brand new. It feels like it's the hardest thing ever.
Yes.
Because it is, because just because you like stopped watching porn, okay, and that was really hard to do, but now you're in a relationship. Guess what? It's going to be just as hard to stand up as an equal in that relationship and learn new patterns of behavior that's best for you and the other person as it was for you by yourself to stop watching porn or to stop drinking alcohol or whatever.
Yeah.
And then now you're in a relationship. Okay. And you've started walking through that and you sort that out. And then you have a child. Guess what? It's going to feel just as fucking hard as the first part and the other part and the other part. But you stand within the principles and you don't give into the pressure and change what you're doing because of whatever excuse you feel is valid. Because this is how the system gets the whole point, gets you to move off of the principle. It says, look, you have to survive. Everyone's against you. You have to, what you're doing is you're manipulating people. You're hurting people. You're convincing them. You're getting them to go away from. It's like saying all these things to you, and you have to go back to your principles and go, okay, wait, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What is the point? And if I simply turn back to what I was doing before, what's the consequence of that? Am I going to take the responsibility? It's like, let me put it this way, okay? Let's say, I'm just going to tell a story real quick, right? Let's just say there was a group of people who decided they wanted to change the system and it was necessary. And if they didn't, everybody's fucked, including the people who are running the system. Everyone's fucked because that was just the natural consequence of where everything was at. And then in the course of that, those people realized they were not prepared at all to do it. And every step of the way, everything in their reality was going to fight them and try to get them to stop. Now, imagine if in that process, those people were like, you know what, at this point, it's just too hard. I got to just stop. I got to just, and then you can make subtle excuses. You could be like these other people who are like, oh, it was turning me away from God. And I saw Jesus and I saw angels and I know God's real. You can see, you can be real blatant about it, or you can just be like, look, it's just not working for me right now in my life. And I need to focus on other things. Because you see that too, right? But let's just say that here and there, people do that, right? And then somebody comes in and they go, guys, you keep talking about like you're going to change the system, but I look around and I just see a bunch of people who like aren't really doing anything. They're not changing anything. Why is that? Why would they see that? Is it because what we're saying won't work? Is it because what we stand for is invalid? Or is it because the individuals who are here to take the responsibility have to walk through and transcend those points of resistance? You have to. It's like if you want to learn to swim without ever having to face your fear of water or drowning. The problem is like the kid gets in the water and immediately they go under. They're like, oh, fuck. I'm never getting in the water again. You're like, hold on, that's gonna have to face that point. You're gonna have to get to the point where you're okay putting your head under the water. But once you do, it's like, wow, I could do a lot more than I thought I could. This is a whole new experience for me. But imagine the person who says, you know what, at this point, I can't, I don't want to walk through that. I can't do it. And so if it's not like it's a group that's just gonna magically do it. It's going to be individuals in the group who walk through each point of resistance, take more responsibility. Somebody might say like, well, I have kids, I have responsibilities. Like I have 3 kids. Like, but my wife is at home, Katie, taking care of them right now, supporting them, doing stuff, also cooking, doing all the stuff she wants to do. We have cow, we have pigs, we have goats, we have all this extra stuff, but we don't go, oh, it's too much now. Now's the point where I stop. Now's the point where I don't really care about making a difference or changing anything. In fact, what we do is we go, you know what? What's my responsibility right now? It's to push even harder. It's to push even harder with every person I can see that either does or doesn't get it, and push them past the point where they're going to choose whether they're going to break. Because think about it, everyone's already fucking broken. Can you imagine if somebody came and said, you are manipulating people to not believe in God and you ruined their lives? It's like, what are you talking about? Because what are you saying then? What are you saying? That everyone's life is perfect right now? Is that the case?
Say
Everyone's
not.
fucked. Like these cattle ranchers out there where their cattle are fucking dying, they're all Christian. They're suffering. If I got them not to believe in God, do you think suddenly their cattle are going to be dead? They're already fucking dead. They already had to like sell their fucking farm and give it to Bill Gates. You think that guy fucking believes in God?
Hmm.
Do you think he lets his belief in God get in the way? Or maybe he fucking does believe in God and he thinks he's ordained by God to fucking rule the world. Isn't that what kings believed?
Yeah.
All the people who believed in God supported kings. Think about that shit. Like the whole point of religion was so that there could be a king who's the speaker, or is like either the incarnation or the mouthpiece or the divine, right. Meaning it's like God's making the decisions through them. And so it's like literally like you're in medieval fucking times and you believe that there's a God and there's a king who rules the world. That's why all these Christians voted for Trump and thought Trump was the savior, even though we said he wasn't. It was just buying some time in the system. And somebody might say like, do you ever get discouraged or something? I don't get discouraged. Like there may be moments where a feeling comes up, but you know what you do when you get any kind of feeling? What do you guys do? When you get some kind of feeling that's pushing you away from what you know is best?
I look at
Breathe.
where that feeling's coming from. Yeah.
Go back to the principles. Yeah.
So
Forgive it.
someone say,
then-
oh, I'm so depressed. I'm like, okay, stop. You have the tools. Stop it. Are you going to suddenly feel on top of the world today, right now? Maybe. But at the end of the day, does it matter? Or is it you're going to move yourself even when you feel depressed? I mean, that's what the elite do. You don't know what they feel. You don't know. Right? What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. Like, if you're using God as an excuse, or really just like, it's so irrelevant, actually. Like, other than the fear point, obviously, there's a huge point of fear that would hold somebody to continue doing or believing in God or continue keeping the system running within themselves, because that's really what God represents right now. It's just like, this is the way that things are. And so there's a big point of fear to remain in that way. Kind of like what you were saying before, you grow up in the middle of that sea of people who are just killing each other, hurting each other. And you're told, shut up. Don't say anything about this. Don't try to change it. Because if you do, you will be hurt. And here's how you're supposed to distract yourself. And it's like, that really is so accurate as to how people are raised up. It's just like, just don't question it. If you question it, you're gonna get hurt. And a lot of people are they're taught that from a really young age, and they don't want to be hurt, and it's the person who is telling them that is like, they're bigger than them. They represent, in essence, God to them. And you got to ask, why is that? Because like, they are a representation of the current system. They're definitely, like, every parent is a representation of the current system. And then they're instilling that into their child, consciously and unconsciously. And that's like, if you actually wanted to change that, you'd have to go against everything that you were taught as a child and believed and accepted. And if you're unwilling to do that, which it seems like on the surface, like, because I've talked to a lot of people who on the surface are like, yeah, I want to change. I want things to be different. Like, it's like, you don't understand what that actually means, because everything that you've understood up until this point has been from this perspective, this understanding.
Can you see how even if you start moving yourself within this group, you might go, oh, I don't believe in God. Like I take responsibility now. But then what happens is you get hit with another level of responsibility that has nothing to do with that. And you don't realize there's another level of that program.
100%.
You just don't call it God anymore.
100%.
So some people hit the first level and they go right back. And they hit the next level, they go right back. They hit the third level, they go right back. And they have to start all over
Yeah.
because they go right back to the bottom.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you guys think? I want to try something real quick. Because we have time, right?
Uh-huh.
Can you share?
Are you trying to share something?
No, I'm not going to share it. I'm gonna let you guys do it. Oh, I just hit share screen. That's not what I wanted to do. I'm gonna put it
Dude, just when Cam gets that ready, Drake, I noticed you brought up the point. You said it's this like underlying thing where people say if you question it, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
And how I see it is if you don't question it, you're gonna get hurt.
For sure.
Right? It's like actually invert it. Because
Yeah.
when you can see the obviousness of how fucked the world is. I mean, earlier, Cam, when you were talking about the analogy of the ballroom where there's 99.9% suffering, little bit is this image of a fuzzy angel or whatever. It's like I looked up, for example, trafficking of children. And every year, 300,000 children are taken from all around the world and sold by human traffickers. And that's just what's documented. Like, how can you look at that and think that there's a God involved in that? And what kind of stupid logic are you going to apply to that of saying, well, God, or they all have their guardian angel too. What the fuck is their guardian angel doing? Yeah. What if the guardian angel, the actual guardian, is you and you're fucking sitting on your ass, jacking off to some idea in your mind, saying, no, there's this angel.
And you've got like a little angel statue on your front porch.
Right, exactly. And you think that makes the cut. It's like that. I mean, that person's just fucked. But
the challenge with it is there's a lot of people in this world who don't question it at all. So I would say they're at the level of no fucking awareness whatsoever. Right. I'm not really concerned about those people. I'm not blaming them. I'm not mad at them. I'm not like, oh, these fucking idiots. Like, it is stupid. But that'd be like someone who never was taught mathematics, not knowing that 1 + 1 is 2.
Right.
No one fucking taught them. Like, they never supported them to that may be an obvious one. Like, not knowing that, 50 times 11 is 55 or 550. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they just don't, they don't know how to work it out. They didn't have the tools. Okay. But I mean, I'm still going to say that's stupid that you don't know it because it's not hard to understand, but I'm not blaming that person. There's a difference between the person who becomes aware of the point and then justifies, and they don't even look at the logic of what they're saying. And then they would expect that if they got falsely accused of a crime, that the jury and the judge and everybody would apply strict, perfect logic in actually examining all the facts and the evidence and not going, yeah, but I just feel like maybe someone prayed and that's why you did that crime. Or, I mean, some like totally, you're like, no, what? No, like, I don't know. Like, I think whether we can prove it or not, I think it's in God's plan that, you do need to be convicted. And you're like, what? No, no, don't do that. That makes no sense. Like, what? Don't stop there. Keep using the logic, keep going. But that's where people stop.
Yeah.
And again, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's really then the underlying foundational root cause is like the lack of education. It's like people are so caught up in this like mystery and magic and curiosity of like how the world works and operates, and not actually understanding how reality just operates. So that's why then it's easy to go into, oh, like God just works in mysterious ways, and there's just like this the feeling of hope or something, that like miracles, right? It's like people want to believe in this like magical existence that we're in, when in reality it's literally just like a computer. You know what I mean? Like, there is a very logical sequencing of how like the cause and effect consequence of events happens. But people want to believe, like even people who are in the group and use TechnoTutor, like there is sometimes like a level of belief that happens where like, oh, if I put all this stuff in my TechnoTutor and I do all this self-forgiveness, it's like magically like my reality is going to change. It's like,
but then when the resistance comes up, they go back to what their programming was, instead of going, oh, this is what I was doing all this processing for, is in this moment, not justifying it like I did before, because now I'm aware. Like, because the feeling isn't real, so I'm not going to go with the feeling. The feeling's still going to be there in a lot of cases.
That's been the problem the entire time. Is just that. It's just like you have this magical thinking and you think that it's just going to solve itself or whatever. And instead of actually confronting it, it's like, oh, it didn't work out magically. It's like, oh, see, I told you. It's like, that's the fucking problem, that you
Yeah.
think it's going to work out magically.
And the reason why I brought that up is because I didn't grow up necessarily religious, but I did go through like little phases of like kind of testing faith, so to speak. Like I thought, like, so when I was growing up, I thought it was cool to be religious. So I wanted to be religious. I like wish my family went to church and like had like bigger faith. And not just like my grandmother really like believes in God, but she was never a church goer. So I wanted that level of faith kind of that she had. And then I went to a Catholic high school, and then that's kind of where I was like, oh, this is fucking bullshit. Cause I was taught religion there. And I was like, this is not what I thought it was. Like I then got sucked into the science realm, which then it's like science is bashing like creationism. And I was like, oh yeah, like that makes perfect sense. Like this sounds like a fairy tale story. Like, evolution, the evolution of man from bacterium to like ape, like that makes more sense. But then where I got tripped up on, which is literally a fucking booby trap, is the spirituality shit. And then that's what sold me on like the magic and like, oh, I create my own reality and this shit, and things always just work out for you. And I chose this life to, in order to like make a difference in my own life so I can have the most experience. And it's just like, there is literally 1,000,001 booby traps to do that to you. So it's like, if I could have that upbringing without all the fear, but still get kind of sucked in, it's like, yeah, of course, like everyone is going to be to some level within this like illusion of like this not understanding reality. Because really that's what it comes down to. It's you don't understand reality. So you then believe in this like magical existence of like things just work in mysterious ways and I will never understand it.
But notice within your story, because I have a similar experience, just different points, right? But in your story, it's all about you.
Yeah.
It's all about like, I'm trying to figure out how to, and when you really boil it down, it's like, how can I be excited and happy?
Yeah.
What's
Right.
going to give me meaning and purpose?
Energy. Yeah.
And no one's going, okay, I don't care about how I feel or any of that kind of stuff. Like, there's all these fucking problems in this world. Why is that? How can I solve these problems? And that's, so it shows like the starting point of the average person is not actually to make any difference whatsoever. It's just it's self-interest.
Right.
So the religion, spirituality, science, no matter what it is, they just, the person's taking it based on their starting. I love when somebody says, I studied quantum mechanics. In reality, they just mean they watch like What the Bleep Do We Know?
I've studied quantum mechanics.
You know what I mean? And so it's like you learn just enough about science in school that later when you like become spiritual, you're like, yeah, I know about wavelengths and vibration and frequency. And it's like, yeah, okay. So you feel it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. Isn't that the one, right? Where the person, the less they know, the more they think they're an expert.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really what spiritual people are. It's
That's
like they don't really
literally-
understand even what frequency
like,
means.
I don't look at like books or anything. It's all self-taught and self-knowledge and like comes from my intuition. Like it's just some bullshit. Like
Do you remember that episode of It's Always Sunny, where Charlie thinks he knows Chinese? And like he's like,
Oh yeah. He becomes
Sunny-
a genius apparently.
Yeah, he's just like saying all this shit. He's like explaining it so well, and then like
And
they
everyone's like,
show-
holy fuck, how did he become so smart all of a sudden? He's
Yeah.
like playing chess and doing all these different things, right?
and they show like what he's actually doing. And it's just like blah, 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 blah.
And they're all just entertaining it because it's like an experiment or something, right?
Yeah.
I'll okay, so here's what I like to do. I sent that link. Maybe you can
Yeah.
put it in the chat on the Facebook.
Okay,
Seagull.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I was thinking maybe we could just read through it together.
Okay.
This will settle the point once and for all, right? And anybody who's like, oh, you're just using Bernard's words and you don't even have your, it's like, what episode is this?
106.
107 or 106, right? We've got a whole fucking like,
106 and Park.
let's just say even the average podcast is 2 hours because there's some that are much longer, some are shorter, right? Let's just say 2 hours. Like that's 200 fucking hours of us saying what we fucking stand for. So no one can give us some bullshit about like, oh, you just hide behind other people's words. we've got our own fucking words. Okay. But in the same sense, like if Max wants to learn algebra, you know what I'm going to do? Well, actually, I already have it. I'm going to find the best fucking algebra book, and I'm going to teach him how to read, and I'm going to give him that book. And then I'm going to play with them and do exercises with them, and we'll do stuff together, and we'll read stuff together, and I'll teach him some things I know. But I'm not going to be like, well, I've got to write my own algebra book. Why? That would be a waste of fucking time, right? Unless there's obviously flaws in it, and in which case I'm going to explain that, right? Okay. So I was thinking that'd be kind of cool because, and then we can obviously, maybe, I don't know how much we'll get through with the whole thing, I don't know, but we can maybe give comments or something on it if we need to. I'll just start with the first statement, right? It says, so this is day 5 in Bernard's blog. That's why we're always telling people read this shit. Because to me, everything in here is self-fucking evident. It's not because Bernard said it, therefore it is true. It is the holy gospel according to Bernard. It makes fucking sense. It's like if Bernard wrote down 1 + 1 is 2, I wouldn't be like, well, Bernard said 1 + 1 is 2, guys. So if somebody says 1 + 1 isn't 2, I wouldn't be like, yeah, but Bernard said it was, guys. I'd be like, all right.
Commit myself to know.
How many
that
fingers
1
is
plus
this?
1 is
How many fingers is this? Now count them.
Yeah.
Okay. Is like that's how I taught my kids. I didn't go, well, a mathematician said okay. Remember in school when they teach you like you can't divide by 0?
Yeah.
Why not? And somebody goes, because you get an error on your calculator. Why does the calculator get a fucking error? Right. But people say, well, it's just because it says so. They don't understand why.
Right.
Okay. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize and embrace the clear certainty that the beginning was the Word and that the Word was God, implying and stating that I, as a creation and creator of words, are in fact the God of words. Let that sink in. So let me do my preface. That's too late. My belated preface. If you want to know what I stand for, what we stand for in terms of what is God, are we against God? No, we're saying what is the real context of God? What does God actually mean? Okay. It's just we're challenging people's bullshit that it's just this thing that's going to magically fix all our problems. Okay. Who wants to read the next one?
I'll read this one.
Okay.
I forgive myself that I have refused to accept and allow myself to see how I participate in the creation of myself in this world as the relationships between all that is here as words that define life. Well, it clearly shows that I do not define life, but only my self-interest, and in fact, that the image and likeness of my words reflect to me that I've abdicated my responsibility of giving life as I have received life.
God gave you life according to you, whoever believes in God. And now it's your responsibility to give life. What does that mean? To create the man-made system that exists because of our participation and our thought processes and our physical movement that would give life to all equally here on this planet, which we don't do that because we abdicate it by going, God's more powerful. When in the fucking Bible, it says the Word was God. It didn't say in the beginning was God. Think about it. It's clarifying for you. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The Word was God, not God was the Word. The Word was God. Does you understand what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying there was this God of words. It was saying there was the Word, and that was God. In the beginning of your life, there was words. There was people speaking to you, and that was God for you. That's why your children repeat the same shit they see on TV or they hear from you. And if you're negative and you tell them they're a piece of shit, that's what they're going to think about themselves, because that is God to them. That's what is creating them. And are you giving life to your child, or are you giving them ego?
It's so good.
Okay.
It's so good. Like,
what's the next one? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Dre.
Because like you just said, that's what they're going to repeat. It's what you hear them repeating. It's like, we just watched a little video yesterday of some kid like talking to his mom and going like, Linda, listen, honey, you're not listening to me. And like, he's like a 3-year-old kid, but you can see the mannerisms that he has and the words that he's repeating. He's obviously copying his parents. He's obviously acting out what he's seen his parents do. And those words that they've said, he's repeating them back. And that has become this voice within him. And maybe it goes dormant for a little while, but as you become an adult, those voices are subconsciously speaking to you in a way that you're not even really aware of, and causing you to act the way that you do and be the way that you are, and that is the driving force within you. That is your God, essentially. Christine, do you want to read the next one?
I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not accept the responsibility of creation as what is best for all life through my words as this world, and instead have created words that form relationships and maintain relationships that cause harm to those less fortunate than me.
See, and that's what we're talking about when you use the word God. Are you defining and using that word in a way that maintains relationships in this world that harms other people and even yourself? Because we can use the word God and we can say, we are God. And we take the responsibility. See, now, if you could use that word as, say, I am God, but you're maintaining a definition of the word God that's abusive still by you're special and people just owe you stuff or whatever the thing is. We're not saying we're God, like, see, worship us. I'm amazing. Everything I do is amazing. And no matter what, you can't question me. That's not at all the point. It's saying I am God means I am taking the responsibility of the words that I use and know and live and the relationships that I create and how I define those relationships and how that affects myself and other people. That's actually what God is. It's the ability to define the words.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to use the power to create, to be as an abomination that do not honor and respect life, and that in my vanity, I have used the name, word of God, creator, in vain, by not standing as equal to life in image and likeness through creating my image and likeness as less than life. I like this one because it's like, first, what is an abomination, right? And looking at it, the word abomination is like destruction of life, right?
It says a feeling of hatred, a thing that causes disgust or hatred.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, like an abomination would be something that is just it's disgusting. It deserves your feeling of hatred, right?
Yeah, exactly. An act that's I think one of the definitions as well is like an act that deserves disgust. And like taking the name of God in vain. Like that's like used.
That's what we were saying, right? Like meaning we're saying you're using the word God, but you're using it in a way where it's just creating a point that people don't have to take responsibility for the relationships we're all participating in, which hurts people.
And if you look up the definition of vain, it's like false pride, right? That's one of the definitions. The other definition is an unsuccessful use of something. And so it's like
unproductive success.
Exactly.
That's so funny because it reminds me of these religious fanatical people that are actually using the word of God in vain.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and then it wasn't that one of the commandments. It says, "Don't use my name in vain."
Exactly.
And people go, "That just means you don't say God damn it." You say G. You see G darn it. If you say G darn it, you're technically not using the word God, because even though I'm thinking,
I use G whiz,
but it has nothing to do with actually using the word God in vain. Like they don't even know what that means to use something in vain. It's like
because they were taught because of what's the word, etiquette and social mores back in the past. You didn't cuss in public.
Yeah.
Right. So they didn't want the kids to cuss. So they said, see, you're using the God's name in vain. Second commandment, or I think it's the second one, that says don't do that. That's bad. So they're using fear of punishment of God to control their behavior, which is the whole point of how people define God.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll read the next one. Which one? Abomination. Next one, right?
Yeah.
I forgive that I have accepted and allowed myself to foolishly believe that I can do whatever I want in the name of free choice without any direct consequence, as I am somehow a special creation, as I received the power to create the living word as flesh, while in fact I'm using that which I have received in vain and vanity in both the creation of myself and the creation of the relationships which form the image and likeness of this world as humanity and creatures and plants. Any comments?
Power to create the living word is flesh. That's really cool.
This one just reminds me of like spirituality. Like it's like the free choice, or just not even spirituality, but just the free choice thing. It's like with no direct consequence. It's just like.
But also, don't they use like, well, it's like, well, but why doesn't God just fix all the problems? And what do they say?
You don't know his plan.
Well, no.
Oh, also we have free choice.
He
Did you
has to
say
give
that?
us free will. So they're using the concept of free will
To
as the
justify.
excuse to justify the abuse that happens from the relationships that we've defined and done it in the context of saying God is going to take care of these points,
And
but
again,
also recognizing that it's us doing it, but he has to let us do it. So we're totally misdefining all this shit in vain. Like we're not understanding what God really means. And then so it's in vain. It's not correct.
it's also just like that same point of like, you have this point, you have this point. So we have free choice, and God allows us to use that free choice. But I can't change those other people. So it's never
Right.
going to
No,
happen. But
God
also
is
it's all
all
in God's
powerful.
hands. Yeah.
God is all powerful and totally benevolent. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we have free will. Also, God is gonna, if he has a plan, we can't change anything, right? He's gonna take care of everything. Yeah, but we could just change it because we have free will, right? No, God has free will. Or I mean, God is gonna take care of everything. Okay, but you said we have free will. Okay, yeah, we have free will. We can do whatever we want. God doesn't interfere. But then we should change it. No, because God takes care of everything. It's like, hold on. Can you not just draw a line from this one to that one?
Exactly.
When you're saying this point, you're also considering this point you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like someone going, I can't eat meat because I'm vegetarian. You're like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna make a vegetarian meal. No, I can't eat vegetables. I'm a carnivore. I only eat meat. And you're like, I thought you said you're a vegetarian. Yeah, I'm a vegetarian. I only eat plants. You're like, you're saying two contradictory things, but they're like, as soon as you bring up one, they're like, oh yeah, that's the point. You're like, but what about this? Oh yeah, it's that one right there. Yeah. You're like, what about this one over here? Which one? That one? Yeah, no, look at both. There's only one point. You're like, you just can't see
Right.
both fucking points in front of you.
Right.
But this is the point about vocabulary, right? And processing ability. And the problem is when you read Bernard's blog here, none of this is like some high fucking level of vocabulary, like obsequious, senescence, you know what I mean? Like words that people don't fucking know.
Right.
It's just normal words. It's just the way in which they're defined is you have this emotional bias definition. So when they read the word vain, they just think it means you're saying it disrespectfully. They think that
Right.
taking the word of God in vain or the name of God in vain means you're saying it with disrespect, which is not
Right.
what vain means.
Right.
Speaking
Um,
negative about God.
Speaking negatively about God. Okay.
Well, that's
All
it.
right.
Where are we at?
I forgive myself that I've refused to see how I have bedeviled the words of my creation by creating all words with backwards meanings that do not represent life, but represent that which works as the opposite of life, which is evil.
Backwards meanings.
Yeah.
Backwards meanings. You're putting God as the opposite of what it means. What are you gonna say?
Right. Like love has a backwards meaning. It's the feeling as opposed to like, no, it's all the actions that you do, the consideration of like actually taking care. That's more so what love is. It's the physical versus like, oh no, I just got this. That's how we define
Right.
it, this backwards meaning.
Or it's like a heaven. Like, let me just this physical reality is not what's real. Let me just get to heaven and then I'll hang out in heaven. But in reality, it's like live your life here, right? Let's create heaven for real.
But when you go to heaven, do you expect that it's going to be physically material? Like, don't you want there to be solidity to it?
Yeah.
Or do you want it to be just like the opposite of
VR.
physical reality is you're in a void. So when you say this isn't real, but heaven is real, it's like, if this isn't real, what the fuck is real? Like what do you expect reality to be beyond this physicality? Like it's going to be a void of nothingness. That's how you're defining it. And that's the consequence you're creating is well, actually, I don't want to skip ahead. I don't want to spoil this. Where am I?
Okay. Christine. Wait, it's Christine, right?
Oh yeah. I
Backwards.
forgive myself that I have deliberately create me and my children for generations as the word made flesh in ways that do not support life. And even as I write here, this creation of abuse continues with no certain end in sight and no certain action taken to stop such abuse, in spite of the image and likeness of my creation that exists as this world.
So again, not teaching words effectively with correct meanings creates the problem in the next generation, the next one, the next one. Okay. Who's next?
Drake.
Drake.
Okay. I forgive myself that I refuse to realize that which has a beginning has an end, and that unless I create me as the living word, equal as life in every way, measured as best for life, I must end, as I have relinquished my right to life through my consistent example that I refuse to respect life and that I refuse to give as I have received. That just makes sense.
You're not living as actual life. So why the fuck would you continue as life? So you're like, I'm going to go to heaven and be alive. It's like, you're not alive here. So what the consequence of what you saying that you are consistently is not that. I commit myself to dedicate myself to purify my words as the creator and purveyor of my words, that they may represent life as that which is best for all life, and thus represent me as life, understanding that through my creation, I look at me. And when I see life everywhere as my creation, I will have confirmed that I have created me as life. So no one can sit here in this group and go, I have finished my process. I am life. I am amazing. I am great and powerful. Anybody who says that is fucking off. They're fucking off. They're a liar. Because until you look around at all of reality and you see life everywhere, I mean, that's you. Until I see every child being taught effectively, I didn't support me. I'm not done.
You know, what else is like obvious about like living as life or being life? It's like the way you make decisions is mostly based out of fear and survival, and has nothing to do with what you actually want to create here in this world. So you're not life in that sense at all. You're not actually directing yourself. So how would you be able to direct yourself anywhere else? You know, this is like where you have the opportunity to, hey, I can do things. Like, yes, it's going to take some time. You're going to develop that. But if you don't develop that, it's like if a child doesn't develop words, the English language, they're not going to be able to speak later on in their lives, you know? Anyway.
Yeah. I commit myself to bring this awareness as the living word to all that are here living words, so that all may realize that they are in fact their own judge through the image and likeness of the living word. And that the word was with God means that you can never be more than the words you accept yourself to be, which is the reflection as this world in every way. It's good.
Christine?
I commit myself to study my reflection as this world, and to see how I have mirrored myself till I understand how to stop what I have allowed, and how to create, in fact, living words that reflect life, supported as equals in all ways. And in this way, I will be able to give what I would be willing to receive in a practical, real, measurable way. This would then be where love would be made visible, and where I would in fact be love in living action in all reflections. And in this, I will end the illusion which had been my delusion, that I have named fear.
I mean, look at that. That really encompasses what we're saying here, right? The world is the mirror of ourself. And the whole point about the being willing to give and receive in a practical, real, measurable way, that's the part where the Christians fall short, because they stop at, it's about being kind and compassionate to people when they're hurting. But that's not giving actually in a real measurable way, where it's like a child is hurt and then you soothe, you help them, but then you don't ever figure out why were they hurt and then stop that from happening.
Yeah.
You know, if they fell down because they were running, that's just part of the learning process, but that's not real hurt. You know what I mean? That's not gonna, at the end of the day, that's just part of the learning process. I'm talking about like a person abused them. And then we don't stop the abuse because we're like, yeah, but I'm a good person. I helped the child after they were abused. I commit myself to study my, oh, I said that. We said that one, didn't we?
I commit myself to educate myself and all others till we as one will use the life we received temporarily to create a living example of what is best for all life that will stand for eternity. That's cool.
I commit myself to take responsibility for all creations, whether directly or indirectly allowed and created by me, as I realize that regardless of who creates what, I am here part of this creation of words, and am sentenced by my sentences and a convict of my convictions. I will no longer allow myself to be directed by faith, as I understand that the practical meaning of faith is that when I walk as the living word as flesh, all relationships that follow will eventually respond in ways that is best for all life. And thus this certainty in action to walk till it is done is me as dedication to life, as the living flesh, as the word faith. I will not wait for the illusions that is not of this world of flesh, which I have mistakenly given values to through the miscreation of faith without proven outcomes here as flesh. It's like, think about this, man. Like you said earlier, Mitch. Oh, they're like, oh, this world isn't real. This is an illusion. And I'm like, how is it not obvious that heaven is the illusion? That literally it only exists in your mind. Like it only exists if you talk about it. And that's why you're saying I have to have faith for it to be like, if it was real, it wouldn't fucking matter. Just like there's this author I used to read called Robert Anton Wilson. I think it was him who said that reality is that which persists rather, even if I don't believe in it.
Yeah, that's good. There's that book that's super popular among spiritual people, The Alchemist. It's
Haven't
like,
read it. Yeah.
Yeah, the made up story.
yeah. It's a fiction.
The one nobody can replicate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
But it's entertaining for sure. But there's a part in there where they're talking about like, you got to understand these symbols and things that people understood way back when, and they just got more complicated as time went on, because people lost their understanding. And it's really like, if you were explaining something to someone because you knew why we were doing this thing, like the abuse that you were talking about in the beginning, like this abuse is done so we can control these people, right? Like, why that's happening. And then you don't explain that to other people, or they don't have the ability to understand why this is or that is. They don't have the words, they don't have the vocabulary. Then they're not going to understand going forward what is what, or why we do this, or what makes sense, or anything like that. And that's essentially the world that we've come to. And they put it in this really mystical, like ethereal, like as if it's a concept of just like, words just muddle things up. But it's really like, no, you just don't have the understanding. Like, you don't have the understanding of the words themselves. That's why you're sentenced by your sentences. You're a convict of your convictions, of your beliefs of what you think it is, rather than having the actual understanding, which is not that hard to get, but because there's so much within you that is muddled because of your beliefs and how everyone is essentially abused verbally and through words and their understanding. That's what makes it seem so complicated,
Yes, because you don't have all the building blocks to actually understand the whole point,
Mhm.
right? Just like I was reading this book on engineering that I bought. I don't know why. I sometimes just buy stuff, and I was kind of flipping through it, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. I'm like, okay, I gotta start at the beginning. And I start at the beginning. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. Like, not like I have no clue, but it's like there's clearly points where I'm like, okay, like this guy knows about coding, computer architecture, all, like it's very technical. And I'm like, yeah, I got this for Max. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna have time to go and learn all the fucking details of what this guy's talking about. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, could I? I know I could, but is that where I'm gonna apply my time?
Right.
So it's like, you just see how, but if I were to be like, I don't know anything about this, is just like out there. It's like, no, it's just, I need to go back and study all the details. Like this guy it's a graduate course on engineering. So of course it's not going to be like, you can just pick it up and start reading it. You have to go back to where, okay, let me get all the information that this guy already knows, or he's assuming all of his students already know.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And then the time that takes to accumulate that knowledge, it takes time, right? Okay.
Yep, here it's me.
Okay.
I commit myself to dedicate myself to the only choice I can freely make, namely that which is best for all life as the living word, as that is the only choice that I will not, that is the only choice that will not produce some influence of fear, And in that choice, I'm free and thus create the same freedom for all to embrace once they have relinquished the fear they have embodied as flesh and see the simplicity of the living word when all are equal creators of the word, which meaning that
With meaning.
with meaning that supports life equal in every way.
So when we're all equal creators of words with meanings that supports life equal in every way, meaning when everybody has the same vocabulary, that's effective vocabulary, not based on fucked up definitions. That's the point. And actually, to tie that back to the previous point, the point about faith is like people say, like, I need to have, oh, my faith in God was tested. And it's like, you mean the energy you put into your belief that you have to maintain on a consistent basis and keep reminding yourself of that God is real when all the evidence shows you clearly in your face it's not, as what you're defining it as. And then look at the word faith. And what he was explaining was faith is you're like, okay, I am going to live as what is best for all. Okay. And is that a process because you weren't starting from that starting point? Obviously, but it's like pushing yourself. I'm going to push myself and get to that point where I am always consistent within that. To even get to that point requires faith in the sense of, as I do that, as I push myself, and as others do that, and as others do that, the consequences of what I do, like, for example, if someone is being abusive, I could accept that, or I could say something, just as a simple example. By my saying something, they will stop. Therefore, I will not be abused by that person at that point. So the faith is that I continue the point. It's a certainty. It's not a belief kind of faith. It's a certainty. It's like if I have the skills and knowledge to build a house, and then I go get all the lumber and all the materials, and I start on day one, and I'm like, man, it's going to take a long time. This is hard. I'm like, yeah, but I have faith I can do this. I'm not believing in myself. I'm not like, I believe it can be done. Maybe. It's like, I'm certain. If I just keep going and I put the next point and the next point and I put the next point, like eventually I'll have the house. That's the certainty. That's the faith we have within what we're doing, which is, it's not I just believe we can create a world that's best for, it's like, it's certain. As people develop the equal vocabulary with meanings that are best for all life, and as everyone does that, what will be the end result of that?
Yeah.
A world where all decisions are based on relationships that are best for all. That is common sense. It's not faith. Whereas your belief in God, your faith in God is literally I'm just kind of making it up and I'm choosing to believe that. And I think, and I believe if I choose to believe that, somehow that will make it real.
Right. It's a hope.
Is a hope. Okay, next one.
It's
I
Christine.
commit myself to reveal how evil backwards is life. And when we stop and reverse what we have done in self-interest and act in the best interest of all, we will create that which will be the image and likeness of life in every way.
It's just as hard to create a business that abuses people as it is to create a business that is best.
You know,
Just because you're doing what's best doesn't mean it's any easier. That's the key takeaway. But the point is, like, we have a world of abuse. We have a world that has every child has to go to school and there's TV everywhere and there's all these people doing activity all the time. And it's just in a starting point that's abusive because of the definitions of how everyone's living their words. And if you just changed all that and changed the starting point, reversed it, and the words were correct and clear, the same amount of effort would create a world that's fucking amazing and best. It's not like it's any harder. But to think that it's going to magically happen, like you're sitting here going, to make bliss an amazing world, it's magical. It just happens like that. It's like, no, the same amount of effort that puts into making this world work every day has to go into making heaven. And it's never going to happen if the starting point is evil, is doing what is not best. It's just self-interest. What were you going to say, Drake?
I was going to say, to go back to the previous point of like being able to make choices freely, or to make the choice of doing what is best for all life freely. That's a huge point, because then you don't have to worry about like, did I do the right thing? Or, somebody's going to be upset and come back and bite me in the ass, because you're doing what's best. You already know, like, it doesn't matter. Like if you know that what you're doing is actually good for yourself, for the other person, for everybody involved, it's like, you don't have to fear it and
if you do fear it, because that thought's coming up, where is that thought coming from?
Yeah.
it's coming from a world that is based on self-interest, which is why the fear is there. So it's proving to you even more why you must do it.
Yeah.
Because the reason you're afraid is because you're already in the world where that's the consequence. So you're admitting to yourself, you know, the end result of continuing the world as it is you're in constant fear.
Right.
So the only way you can stop fear, does that mean if you suddenly start walking this process, nothing bad is ever going to happen to you? No. We're talking about long-term big picture. Because what is everybody living on? What is everybody abdicating their self-responsibility for on this earth for right now?
Just for the moment.
No. Something that's at the end of your life, way off in the future
heaven.
anyways.
You mean heaven.
Like you're still going to suffer here on earth, even if you believe the heaven thing is going to come later.
Yeah.
So they try to convince you, no, when you believe in the Lord with all your might, you experience the joy of it. Yeah, but when you're in your self-honesty, you fucking feel like shit most of the time.
Right.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
I commit myself to purify my words, to represent in me and in my reflection as image and likeness of my creation here on earth, that which is the living flesh, as the flesh itself, and all relationships related to this existence. I understand that I must purify each word one by one to make sure that all relationships that will represent me as life will in fact support life in all ways, that I will be able to trust my words as the creator of life, and in so doing, in fact, accept the gift of life by creating myself as life and doing such in spite of all beliefs that may spit the contrary, as I understand that only in equality as that which was given to me as life will I find that which will be eternal life for me and all others, no matter where and what.
The way to get eternal life is to live as life in every way all the time and support a system that supports life always. That is what eternal life means. It means eternal means it's never going to stop because it's not constantly defeating itself. People think eternal is like, it's like they put this emotional term on it. I'm going to be granted eternal life, which means that I'm going to be allowed to live forever because I was a good boy or girl and I believed in God. That's not what that means. So again, we're just showing how you take all the words in religion and Christianity and spiritual, whatever, and you start looking at how people define them versus what they actually mean in common sense, which is what Bernard is showing you.
Right.
You're like, oh, fuck. So people, it's like, what do people think? If they're a part of Technotutor, self-perfected destiny, that if they're a part of that, it's leading them to evil. It's leading them to bad things. It's leading them to not having eternal life. But look at what this is fucking saying. It's showing you this is the actual way to get the shit that you think you want. It's like you're telling me you're trying to build a house. And I'm like, okay, here's how you build a house. You're like, how dare you tell me that? And you go over here and you build like a fucking fire pit. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You don't even understand what a fucking, do you know what I mean? Like a beam or a support brace or fucking whatever. Like you don't even understand what the words are you're using. And you're like, here's my house. And I'm like, that's not a house. But they can't even see that by the time they're done, they're not going to have the house. And we're showing you, I know you want a house. We're building houses.
You're like, my house will come after I die.
It's like, you know, that definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over and over again, you know, getting the same results. Like, it's like, also like your way hasn't been working for the last like 2000 years.
How can you read what Bernard is writing here? And if you understood what it's saying, like you actually were able to process what it's saying and go, see, he's against God and he is evil and he wants to hurt people and he wants us to all suffer. Like, what is he actually saying? That'd be like reading a book that says 1 + 1 is 2. And you're going, see, they're trying to make us believe that, oh, you know, like they're trying to make us believe 1 and 1 is 3. See? And it's like, literally it's telling you 1 + 1 is 2. And you're saying the opposite of what it's saying. All right. Just because you can't process, which is the reason why you're fucked and you're going to continue fucking this world up along with everyone else, because we're trying to be spiritual and we're trying to be good and we're trying to be kind, but we're doing it backwards. We're literally just fucking supporting war and suffering and all this shit because we're putting our focus on something that's not real. That's not actually just redefining the relationships here. Who's next?
You're next, Cam.
I commit myself to be able to meet my end in this cycle at any moment, in any breath, and to be ready to look at my creation with the certainty absolute that in every given moment, I have given life as I am life, that I may enter that which is life. I realize that earth is here to ground me so that I may not mislead me with that which is energy that creates illusions only. And that I realize that the vehicle to self is the flesh as the living word confirmed as life. Meaning, the physical reality is the reflection to show you who you really are and what you accept and what you're all about. You can't, in your mind, make up this artificial virtual reality that's all beautiful and pretty, like an experience of seeing an angel, and go, see, God is real. It's like the reality is right there in front of you. So if at any moment you can't look at reality and go, look at this, this is who I am, this is me, this is life, this is what it's all, this is what's real, and have the certainty to know that the relationships are all corrected, then you better know you're fucked. That doesn't mean to go into fear, because fear is going to just support you to only continue as it is. But the point is, you already have the fear. That's why you're going into an illusion that's making you think, well, it can't be this, because if it's this, I'm fucked. It's got to be that pretty picture in my mind. And what I'm saying is, let go of the pretty picture. Look at here and realize you're fucked. We're all fucked. Let's sort it out. That's the whole point. Let's redefine things so that it's like if you read a contract and in the contract, you realized it said, I agree to give all my money to this person and do all the work and they don't have to do anything. You're like, wait a second. Why the fuck did I agree to that? But just because it says equal services rendered contract, you're like, see, but no, it's an equal services rendered contract. They get and I get and everyone's fine. You're like, but read the actual contract. Now look at what you're actually doing and look at what they're actually doing and look at the actual fucking balancing of that equation. It's all going one place and it's all suffering here. What the fuck are you doing? You're like, no, but it says this and that's what it is. It's like,
and then they're
now
like,
we
fuck,
have to,
I can't even fucking read.
right.
Classic.
All right, next.
All right. I commit myself to not allow those in illusion to trap me with beautiful words when it is clear. With the illusion we have created, the truth will hurt, and only teachers that can cut to the bone of my miscreated flesh will have the understanding proven consistent to assist me in this most difficult task. That task, to give up what I have valued in separation from what is best for our life. I commit myself to not fall in the trap of false promises, as false promises will cause me to not correct myself as the living word made flesh, and will cause me to not correct my creation, that is the image and likeness of my words. And for that, I will, in fact, create the outcome of me, which is not equal to life, and in such action abdicate my life and be my own living judge as the evidence of my created words reflected as my reality.
And consider that everybody deep down knows that they're the judge. Or let's just say if they recognize that they were their own self-judge, is everyone not constantly judging themselves and judging this world?
Yeah.
So in knowing that, if I were the judge and I were to judge myself according to what I accept and allow and what I accept and allow in myself and in this world, I would condemn myself to fucking hell. So I must not be the judge, because if I'm the judge, I'm fucked. There's got to be this judge that really doesn't give a fuck what I do.
Unless I pray to him. I have to pray to him. Though.
You are the best judge ever. I promise I will always protect you and honor your name and defend you against all naysayers. Just please let me in.
That's like little kids when they've been abused and they're not raised effectively. Whenever they get in trouble, they'll run and hug you, or they'll like, oh no, you're my favorite. And they'll do exactly that, right? Whenever they've not been effectively taught, like here's what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And there's no punishment. There's just understanding. Whenever it's like, there's a punishment, it's like, oh no, God, sir, mom, dad, whatever your pronouns are, I'm so sorry that I did that thing that you told me not to do. And I talked to that person and I called him a boy when clearly he has not chosen his person. I mean, I keep saying boy. Oh, damn it. So sorry.
Man.
I said damn it. Oh.
No, now I'm using the Lord's name in vain.
But look at this point, that joke you made about the pronouns.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking like, okay, the one thing no one really wants to identify as is God. But I'm like, well, that's not. But I'm like, but that's not true. People want to identify as that, right? And I'm like, no, but when I say God, what do I mean? I mean the
It's
actual
like
responsibility,
taking
right? And I'm like,
responsibility. Yeah.
oh, you can't
Well,
identify it for real if you can't define what it really is. And that's why they don't want to define what a woman is.
Mm,
Because if they define what a woman is clearly, then it limits who can identify as that.
yeah.
Because then you're held accountable to the definition.
This is really clear as far as like when things are vague, like you can make up any kind of bullshit you want if it's vague. It's just like, oh no, that's what I was saying at the beginning, is like everyone has this vague definition of God with just this
Oh,
point
I
of
see.
like
Yeah.
somebody else has to take responsibility. And so like, no, it's vague, it's whatever, it's cool.
It's
you
not
know?
too specific. Like if it's definitely Jesus, that kind of leaves out other people who want to believe in God and
Exactly.
just not take responsibility. So
Exactly.
you know, it really doesn't matter if you believe in Jesus or not. It's just really like that's what I believe, but you don't believe it. But at least you believe in God, and that keeps the system in place, you know. And like suffering,
Yeah.
it continues, and that's
in
fine.
the same way, like weak men with their girlfriends or whatever, and the girl's like, I think we should just take a break. I'm like, okay, like, but when? I don't know, just like till I feel like I just need some space. Like it's so vague, like it's not happening. She's not coming back. Like you're not leading, you're not actually clear on what's going on in this relationship even, you know.
All right, who wants to be the last? This is
We're
the
gonna
hardest part
continue
right
the
here. Like
rotation.
everybody, this is the part. Turn back now.
I commit myself to remain steadfast, as in this existence where I find myself as temporary, I understand that the evidence is clear that I could not be granted eternal life, as I have not yet understood the power of the living word, and as such I have created my world as words to show me how little I understand and why I cannot have eternal life unless I grant it to me and all else. Therefore, I understand that if I do not create myself as life, I would have proven why I cannot have life, and as such would determine my expiry when the time comes.
Like it's interesting because everybody tries to run away from religion, like the spiritual people, because they're like, oh, I don't want to believe in this heaven and hell and judgment and all this. I don't want to judge anything. But it's like the Christians don't want to judge everything. They just like, oh, Jesus already judged us, and as long as I pray to him, we're good, right? Even though I keep sinning, right? But this is like the actual fucking meaning of actual judgment day.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing everybody's afraid of, which is the reason why they believe in God. They're afraid of they're not going to exist anymore. Like I've told you all about this. I'm sure y'all have had some of your own experience with it, but it's like, you want to know, like people say like, I had this experience of an angel or some bullshit, right? Like, you know what? I never had any experiences like that. You know what I had the experience of? Laying in my bed going, so what really happens when I die? And going, well, obviously I don't exist anymore. And I'm like, what the fuck does that feel like? I'm like, okay, let me imagine what that feels like. And then I go, oh no, wait, I'll actually not exist. I'm like, wait, like I'm sitting here right now. And then there's going to be a moment where I just don't exist anymore. And I start feeling like this terror, like actual like terror, like fear. And I'm like, wait. It doesn't matter because I won't exist. So I won't be there to experience what it's not like or what it's like, right? So
Right.
yeah, but that implies there's going to be a moment where I don't exist anymore. So everything I'm taking for granted right now is not going to exist. And I'm like, and I go back into the terror. And I'm like, but I'm not going to exist. It won't matter. I won't experience it. And I'm like, but that means it's like I keep cycling, right? And what it really comes down to when you look at it is you want to be alive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what kind of unites all of us? We all just want to keep being alive. And yes, some people commit suicide. I understand that. But it's never because they don't want to be alive. It's some kind of desperate point where they're trying to make everybody else pay for all the suffering that they have experienced or that the world has put onto them. They're trying to eliminate suffering. Right? So my point is, everybody at the end of the day, like if you could alleviate that person's suffering, would they want to kill themselves?
Probably not. No.
No, so they're not against their own life. They want to live, but the conditions of their life have been so untenable. It's a problem. So this last point, we all want to live forever. We all want to live forever. But my question is, I understand why, like, because I've experienced the fear. I've experienced that point of like, no, I want this, right? But really, aside from the fear of not existing, why do we want to be alive? And I think that there is deep down within all of us this point of, you know, that Vince Lombardi quote?
No,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean,
think it was Vince
maybe.
Lombardi, where he said, I think it was Vince Lombardi, where he said, you know, we could have won every game if we just had a little bit more time. Or if we just had more time. If we just had more time, we could have won every game if we just had more time. Because the problem is the clock runs out and you were down. So within each of us, there's this point of, if I just can live forever, eventually I'll figure out and I'll get to that point where life is just really great. That's why, like, there's this book I've talked about it before. Some of you have read it, Otherland. Aren't you guys reading that right now, Christine?
I am. Drake hasn't started yet.
And Mitch, are you reading
Soon.
that? Or I can't remember.
I started, but I have not.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I just want, yeah.
Mhm.
Anyways, I'm just going to repeat real quick for myself for Drake. When you went to go piss, did you hear what I was saying, Drake?
Yeah, I heard something about Otherland.
Oh, before that, what I was saying was that fear point that everyone has. Aside from that, why do people want to be alive? Right. And then I was saying, deep down within us, there's this point where it's like that Vince Lombardi quote, where he's like, we could have won every game if we just had more time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I could just keep living, I'll figure it out eventually.
Right.
But the problem of what's this key point about this whole blog we were reading is like, you won't figure it out, because figuring it out means redefining everything in a way where you eventually, the relationships that are creating your experience and are creating on your behalf others' experience on yours, those relationships, the way you define words, and therefore the way systems are put in place in accordance with those definitions, that is determining your experience. So unless you do the work of redefining it, it's never going to change. Like, that's why I tell people, like, there's no reason ever to get a divorce. And people say, oh, if he's like beating her or something, I'm like, well, okay. In like some extreme cases where the person just can't change and they're like just going to kill you. Okay, I get it. But what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about extreme cases. I'm talking about the general case where the person's just like, we're just not happy anymore. You know, like the actual most of the time kind of thing.
Right.
I just don't feel happy with you anymore. And it's like, we have different goals. And it's like, okay, why don't you talk about what those goals are? And why don't you realign them so you have the same goals?
Yeah.
Because how can they be actually different goals?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, don't you just want to like have fun and enjoy life? And isn't it that the patterns you've set up as the way you interact and the way you define words between each other is just in a way where you're just participating in patterns that don't make sense? Like, oh, it's just this one other person. I found the real special person who just makes me feel so good. It's like, that's just because they're willing to look past all the shitty stuff you do. And you guys are pretending that you're all perfect and everything's great until you settle down with that person. And then the real you comes back. And that's all you're facing, is the consequences of the fucking relationships and the definitions of words that you have. You're facing the truth of who you are in relationship. You're not facing the truth of the other person only.
It's funny too, because like when you get something new, a new relationship, it's like you have this new energy with you. And so you get to act in a different way. And like, it's like, oh no, they just brought back like I never got to do these things when I was with so-and-so. It's like, no, that's you doing that.
And that's a point I've really had to push through with myself, of getting excited about something. You know, it's like, okay, you know, like, oh, I want to start running. So you go to the store and you buy like running shoes and sweet ass running outfit and like the headbands, or I don't know where the fuck you get.
Yeah.
But then you really don't take it seriously. And then cause like 3 days later, like someone's like, you know, you could do this keto diet. And you're like, oh, cool. And you start looking up and you start ordering all this stuff, you know, and then you're like, and then the next day they're like, oh, check out this cool painting technique. And you're like, ooh, I want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
you get excited about something and switching and switching and switching and switching. And this is a point we've been walking through with Max, supporting him with. So the other day when he's walking through these points of like wanting to buy a new toy or something like that, right? And then not wanting the other thing he has. So it's like supporting in these points. The points come up, right? So you know what Katie does? they listen to, because I'm not at home at that point, they listen together to Bernard's audios on stimulation. Actually,
Oh,
I think
wow.
it's a written blog, but then there's also audios, and I think they have listened to it as well.
Yeah.
And then they do Technotutor on the word stimulation. And Max says, put simulation in there. So they put simulation in there. And then she's reading the blog and he actually talks about that.
Yeah.
Right. So like
That's
they're
cool.
going through and we're walking him through that pattern because of course he's transferred that from our fucking memories, genetic stuff we didn't direct effectively.
Right.
Right. And I could sit here and go, I am perfect. I don't ever do anything wrong. Our kids are never make any mistakes. That's not what we're here to say.
Yeah.
We're here to say, it's not like okay, they use Technotutor. Let's see what happens. No, it's every day. What are the points where the relationships are not clearly defined correctly? Now let's use Technotutor to correct that.
Yeah.
This isn't but we are in destiny and we are in self-perfecting Technotutor. So our kids are just going to become perfect and I don't have to do anything. See how that's like hope and faith? It's like, no, in real time, what are we measuring? What's the actual issues? And working with those points and correcting them.
Yeah.
So what I guess the point I got off on was this point where people are believing in God because of the fear that God will not give you, he won't let you in on that eternal life, because that's the one point everybody is controlled by. We don't realize that the way we're defining God and the way we're defining our participation in this world and what we're accepting, allowing in this world because of that, we're not acting as the creator of eternal life. And if you're not acting as the creator of eternal life, and then you are the judge of yourself at the end of your life, whether you should be granted eternal life, but you are not consistent in granting eternal life, but doing it based on hope and faith and energy, what the fuck do you think you're going to do when you're faced with total self-honesty?
Right.
And the context of your personality and all of that. And it's like imagine you're like walking down the hall in the final moments of your life, and it's like God is this way. Okay. And you've programmed this point about that God is the ultimate answer and whatever he says goes and all this stuff. Right. And you get to that hallway and like this curtain drops and there's a mirror. And it's like, okay, here it's like, like the judge, like the jury can't convict somebody against the facts. Like, for example, if you went to a courtroom and they prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, this person didn't do it, and the jury says, we don't like him, we're convicting him anyways. The judge would step in and go, wait, what are you basing it on? And they're like, well, we're not basing it on the law. We're basing it on, we don't like him. He's like, no, you have to base it on what the law says. Did you find that he did X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
So imagine when you look in that mirror and then it starts having this list of stuff going, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you accept this? Child number 157389 in longitude, blah, 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 coordinates, blah, 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 died of malnutrition. That same day you made that video saying you saw an angel. And you were talking shit about people saying that God is going to take care of everybody, or saying that we need to create a system to save this child, but you ignored it even though you knew it was happening. Did you do that? And you're like, well, no. Like, no, it's right there. You can't deny it. I'm just asking you to acknowledge that you did it. Okay, yes, I did it. Okay. And now here's another one. Here, I'm gonna give you a trick. What if at the beginning of your life, okay, you walk down the hallway and you see this person sitting there, right? And they're like wearing a hood. You can't really see who they are. Okay. And they're like,
is it like an ominous hood or like an angelic?
Yeah, just like kind of ambiguous, right?
Okay.
Fleshy.
And they're like, come, child, sit down. I am the Lord, your savior, and I grant you eternal life. And you must sit with me and be with me as my right hand because you are special. And you're like, fuck yeah, I knew it. So you sit down. And then somebody comes up there and they're like, this is Cameron Cope. He allowed children to be sexually abused and killed and murdered and raped. He didn't do it, but he allowed it. He knew it was happening. He didn't stop it. And he allowed people to suffer and starve. And when war happened, he just accepted it as part of the system. He said it was bad, but he still participated in the system and allowed it to happen. And let me show you all the evidence that stacks up against him. And he said, at the end of the day, I would take care of it. But in reality, I was putting it there and not taking care of it because it was his responsibility. But he stopped, he didn't follow through on that responsibility. And here's the problem. Here's the problem that we have right now. I want to be compassionate and I want to forgive him. And then I do forgive him. But the thing is, what you didn't know is that when I allow someone into heaven, I grant them the powers to create. I grant them the same powers I have, because I got so bored in heaven of just having to take care of everything for everybody. That's why I don't do it on earth, because I wanted you to learn how to be the creator. So let me ask you, let me just show you a simulation. And so they show you a simulation of this Cameron person walking into heaven, and immediately like people are being raped and killed and like starving to death, because it's like in his mind, he's like okay with it and just let it happen. Right. And he's not going, nope, stop that. Nope, stop that. It's a simulation, right? Like this is a God simulation. We know it proves what this person will do. Now, based on all of that, should we allow them in? And the guy's like, no, like, come on, you're God. They don't do it. They're like, cool. Actually, that was you. And they took off their cloak, and I'm you. And we just condemned ourselves. And then you fucking don't exist anymore. You just blink out of existence. And all the fucking shit that you were afraid of is exactly what happens in that moment. And you're like, no, I would have just been kind to him. But what about all the other people that were in heaven
Yeah.
that he was going to then immediately indirectly abuse? And you have that power right now. The reason you feel that you don't is because your vocabulary is so limited. It's distracting you from reality. It's like, imagine you're on an engineering team, but you're the one person who didn't go to engineering school. You faked your way through all the interviews. And they're like, all right, did you do your part of the project? And you're like, yeah, I did. Sure. Yeah. And they're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. You're like, no, it'll work out. Promise you. I believe it'll work. And they're like, no, dude, like, it's not going to work. The problem is you just didn't have the vocabulary. If you came in there with all the understanding, they'd be like, cool, what do you got? And you're like, all right, so here's how I'm going to do my part. It's going to fit in this way. And here's you just don't have the vocabulary. And the problem is the way things are, when you start speaking and challenging people, what are you going to get back?
You're going to get
Parts where you're not-
challenged.
And you're not going to feel love.
You're going to get tested.
You're not going to feel love from people because that wasn't real in the first place. And now you're allowing yourself to be manipulated by love. And here's what I want to say. A person who's participating in that with the bigger context of the world. Now, let's say you get married. Okay. And you're in love and it's just love feelings.
Dun, dun, dun.
But guess what? You don't want to challenge people because you don't want to lose the love feeling. So what's going to happen in your relationship?
It's going to deteriorate because you're just
Gonna
going to
get
allow things.
Fucked.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to stand up and say what is best.
Because you're afraid of losing.
Right? Because you have a fear of loss. That's why you believe in God the way you do. That's why you have defined God the way you have, because you have fear of loss. You're defining it within the context of fear of loss. But if you are alive and if God is real and he's granted you eternal life, why would you have any fear?
Yeah.
If God was alive, if God was real, he would not allow us to have fear. You say we have to have free choice. Did you choose freely to have fear? Or was it put
Only
into
the
you
fear
from a
of
young
God,
age?
Cameron. I only fear God.
The question is to this person, were you abused as a child?
Most definitely.
And then have you
course.
done the process 7 to 10 to 14 years? 7 to 10 years if you don't fucking fall and falter. Of actually going back and redefining every word and removing all the fear out of every definition. All of the self-interest out of everything, redefining every word so that you see clearly your responsibility as God, as the creator of words in this world to actually support the creation of a system that is best for everybody. It's really simple and you don't have to be powerful to do it. It's just 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. That's it.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why the elite allow the illusion of democracy to continue. They need it because they don't want the people who have the actual power to ever realize that they have power. Because as a collective, we have power. As a group, we have power. But that power only matters if individually we walk the process of changing. You can't just hide in the group. You have to be for real. You have to be equal to every other person. So we can't hide in heaven and be like, no, it's God taking care of it. Everyone's gonna be like, dude, are you seriously on fucking kindergarten level still? Didn't you hear God? He gave you the power. Quit fucking wasting it.
Yeah.
That's what all of spirituality, if you want to investigate all things and keep what is best, that's the best part to keep, is that you are the creator of words with words of this reality of your reality. And you must define them in a way that is the image and likeness of God, which is what is actually best. And stop abdicating that responsibility out of fear. Like, and this is the point, is like, you're either going to choose responsibility or fear. And people think responsibility is a negative word. I remember when I was at the Destiny Farm and Bernard said to me, are you responsible for everything that happens in this world? And I was like, yeah, I guess I am. I said it like that. And he goes, see, you still have a negative definition of the word responsibility. And he just like walked away. And I was like, oh, fuck, you're right. Like, I took it as, are you to blame?
Right.
And immediately, like, I guess I am, like, you know, oh. And if you have that attitude about it, you won't just be like, okay, how do I take responsibility bit by bit by bit, starting with me, starting with my relationships in my life, starting with my friends, my community, other people, supporting others, right? And I really highly suggest to everybody to go and read the very last blog from Bernard.
Yeah.
If you click on home,
574.
yeah, you have to go to the blog and click home. It's not in the timeline as far as I know. Day 574, using shame as motivation. Because anybody who's like, oh no, you have to just not judge people and it's all their own process, right? He explains very clearly that we're here to challenge each other. We're here to be the voice of reason for each other. Because isn't that what you want someone to do for you when you're fucking around?
Yeah.
Don't you want, when you're being abusive to your kids, for your wife to be like, stop it? You're creating a consequence for them. And you're like, oh shit, you're right. Okay, let me correct this point. Let me go and do that. And you have to do that. So it's not just your kids, it's every relationship in this entire world. We have to take responsibility for that. And this isn't about superiority. You can be doing this process for 10 years and still fuck it up. And someone says, see, it doesn't work. No, that person gave in, because it's just as hard on year 10 as it is on day 1. Because until the system and the world is a reflection of who you actually are as life in every way for everyone equally, guess what? You're not done. And even that one little point, think about it, that last little point. Imagine you have a dam and there's all these holes in it. You're just going to see little streams of water, right? But what happens as you start plugging up those holes?
The one gets all the water goes to that one.
It's going to be like you put your hand in front of it and it like shoots a fucking hole through your hand because it's so much pressure. It's going to be the hardest point. So don't sit there and go, oh, it gets easier. It doesn't get easier. I'm not saying it actually gets harder. I'm just saying don't worry about it being hard. It's just like, what's the alternative? Okay, and then I'll end my rant here. The alternative is just go back to your normal fucking life where you're miserable and you're depressed and you have no meaning and purpose. Yeah, okay. Go get into a new relationship, get that energy fixed, get it going and feeling really good. Guess how that's going to turn out? Just like the last one.
Yep.
Until you finally settle and you're just like, it's good enough. Is that who you want to be at the end? And guess what? If that's who you are at the end of your life, do you think God's going to be like, come on in, equal? It's going to be like, you are fucking, you're a corpse that must be discarded. You have nothing left in you. You're like the cardboard boxes. You know, when you get Amazon, who fucking keeps the box?
No one.
You're like, we have something called a burn barrel, and we literally burn all of it because so many boxes and shit, right? You keep what's inside, you keep the actual thing. Now imagine at the end of your life, it's just an empty fucking Amazon box.
It's about to get burned in that burn barrel.
All right, I know you got to go, Mitch. We've been
cool
generous with your time.
This is great.
The point about this group, right? I'll let you guys say your points, but it's to support everybody to walk this point of realizing these points, to sort out all of this, to sort out our own vocabulary, our own definitions, and sort out the definitions in this world. Who's going to take responsibility for that? Not the fucking current elite, because they're just as fucked up as everybody else.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
I remember reading as a kid, like those stories of like, even not even reading. I watched that movie, forget what it was called, something Gentleman, Extraordinary Gentleman. I don't even remember what it's called. But there was a story of one of the person's Dorian Gray. Like he could live forever, stay young forever, so long as he didn't look at a picture of himself. That's what I understood the story to be anyway. And I remember for myself,
the picture was the reflection of who he really was. So
right.
It kept getting old and nasty while he physically looked young and stuff, but the picture was actually the reflection of his true character and his own. Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, wanting that for myself, just like, oh, I could live forever. It doesn't matter what I do. There's no consequence, that sort of thing. That's how I want it to be. Because I did have that point within myself of like, eventually I'll be able to do whatever I want. Like if I live long enough, I'll be able to make as much money as I want. I'll be able to like have the lifestyle that I want, the love that I want, all of that. But it's really selfish, self-centered, and not to say that, wanting to live forever is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying
but you just want to get that young energy again.
Yeah.
And you wasted it in the first place. And if you didn't redefine anything inside of yourself, why would it change what you do with it this time?
Right.
And that Dorian Gray point is really good, because the person who's spiritual, who believes in God, who is religious, all these points, they're doing it because by doing that, they see themselves like they're the picture, they're the actual Dorian Gray, who just their image of themselves is this great, amazing thing. But the world itself is the fucking picture. That's the reflection of
actually
like, look at that. That's
Yeah.
who you are. It's either war in Ukraine, that's you. The pandemic, that's you.
Yeah.
Not the imaginary thing you're imagining is that's you.
Right.
Dude, can you imagine how fucking easy it's going to be to suck people into the metaverse?
Oh,
If they're willing to participate in heaven is real.
100%.
You can't even fucking see it now. Imagine they're like, come into this magical virtual realm. It's amazing. And they're like, oh fuck, I can actually see that one.
People are willing to participate in like, don't say that what you can see that's a man, but don't say that's a man. Like no, people are willing to participate in that. It's just like, okay, so now when you have all the images, and it's like
how can you be a Christian and go, there are women and there are men, okay, and there's a difference, and then be like and act like people are crazy for defining it however they want, and then like you're like, this isn't physically real, guys, this is just temporary, like God is in heaven. It's like, but you just fucking said there's physical rules and there's
Right.
like it's defined a certain way. Like what the fuck? How do you not? You get to a certain point of logic and then you're just like, it's too much.
Exactly.
It's time to be self-pleasing. But this is the point: is they haven't yet examined those points within themselves. Remember that engineering book I was talking about?
Yeah.
I was kind of being facetious when I was like, I can't understand this. There was this really cool point where the guy was saying to really advance, because it's also about artificial intelligence. And he was like, to really advance it, you have to challenge every belief you have. He was like, if you're anti-AI or if you're pro-AI, you have to challenge all of those beliefs, because they will only hold you back in actually seeing the reality of what is possible right now and what to advance.
That makes a lot of sense.
He's like, your beliefs and your biases and everything is just, it's not based on reality. You're not, it's like, I believe one day robots are going to take over the world. Based on what? I just know. It's like, so you're not actually a roboticist who's engineering robots.
Terminator.
You know what I'm saying? Like the actual person who's like, what can a robot do today? How can I advance this one point that gives me to the next level? That's what's required. Same thing with the system that we live in, actually going into the details of how does this part function? What is the definitions of all the words? It's like, you may think that this point doesn't matter, but a contract, a law, a treaty, these are all words that are defined within starting points of, at the end of the day, even though it's not, you don't think it's in the words, just like you're like, in my words about God, there's nothing about I accept suffering.
Right.
It's not that you're saying that. It's in the way in which you define it. The starting point of it is fear of suffering. So it infuses all of it. So the starting point of all contracts and businesses and corporations is greed. It's self-interest. And so the play out of that long term is they don't serve everybody. They don't serve anybody. In fact, a corporation becomes a thing in itself. It doesn't give a fuck about the CEO even. The CEO, if they make one wrong move and they say this man's not a woman, when they say they're a woman, that CEO is gone. The board takes over. They fire them. They get a new person, and then every person on that board gets replaced eventually. It's a fucking like person in itself that has its own agenda, which is all about greed, just to keep the people happy that own its stock.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever, if I can keep you happy, I can keep existing. It has its own fucking fear of survival.
It's a crazy thing. It's an entity, like a legit, like we talked about this off the podcast one time of just like, what is an entity, right? And how people have all these ideas of what an entity is. And it's kind of apropos for this conversation here of like God and seeing beings and all that. It's like, there are entities that you are creating within your mind, and businesses are physical entities that we've created that they
Think about
are
it. Where do they exist?
businesses or
Yes.
oh, businesses exist in contracts. They exist in the words. They
So
exist in the
if
law.
hypothetically,
Yeah.
hypothetically, if the people who run the business went to the government and been like, we're dissolving these contracts that exist between the government that says this company exists,
Yeah,
right? People could still continue going to work, but what would happen?
the business would cease to exist.
The IRS, the whoever would come in and be like, hey, you're operating illegally. You don't have a corporation, like you have to stop. So you
Right.
might think it's the physical stuff that keeps it going, but
That's
it's not.
so good.
If you don't have, in fact, what's going on right now and with like all the IRS stuff, they're adding all these agents because they want to crack down on the gig economy.
Right.
Because people are they're trying to do all this stuff, I'm assuming under the table, whatever. And so they're like, we need to get down on that. But if the people just had an LLC and they reported everything and so forth,
Yeah.
then they did everything according to the rules, no problem.
Right.
So it's all about the words themselves that actually are the starting point of creation. If you want to form a company, yes, you can go start physically doing things, but you better fucking get the words intact. You better get that legal point.
Yeah.
Legal, law, legis, rules, logos, words. It's all the fucking same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the beginning was the word was God, the word was with God. So if the beginning was the word, then that means the word is what defines God.
It's like everything that you've created, all the entities that are surrounding you or whatever is written within you, you know, and I know that's the point that you're making. It's just like the way you said it was really clear. That's really clear. Just like, but that's within us as well.
It's like
You
we're
know.
trying to spell it out for everybody so
Right.
they can't misunderstand.
Right. Exactly.
You can't be like, well, you see, you hate God and you just want everyone to be evil and suffer. It's like, I'm explaining to you in intricate detail how the starting point of what we're saying, why we're saying it, what's the end point, how do we get from A to B to C to D? All you're doing is going, no, I'm a good person. I believe in God. God is real. God is love. Love is everything. Everything will be good. And I'm like, but if I were to try to reflect what you're saying to me about me to you, but you're just being negative, you're bad, you're blah, 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 but you won't hold yourself accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the real challenge with it, is the reverse. It's like somebody said, I heard this cool statement, you know, like you've heard this statement before, where they said the biggest trick that the devil played was for you to believe he didn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
I was just thinking the other day, I don't know if I heard this or if they were talking about this, and then I came up with this other concept, or someone said, whatever, it doesn't matter. I was like, no, the biggest trick that the devil ever pulled was making you think he was God.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
That's it. Right. It's
Well,
like,
you believe in God. The reason you call him master and you're his servant and all this shit is because he is a fucking slave master. You have created him as such.
yeah.
And you have in fact made him your fucking servant,
Right.
because you're like, he will just take care of all of us. This fucking like immature.
Yeah.
We have a world of total immaturity. And when we say that, do any of you or me think that we're like, see, our shit doesn't stink. We're just so amazing and everything we do is great and perfect.
Christine tells me
we
my
make
shit
mistakes.
stinks all the time.
One time I farted
Yeah.
and Seneca goes, that smells like roasted broccoli. She didn't say it like that. She doesn't talk like some New York cat. That smelled, no. She did it in a really cute way. She's like, that smells like roasted. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I sound like a black woman. That smells like roasted broccoli. No, she didn't say it like that. She said it in this really cute, funny way. But I was
Right.
like, it was so funny the way she's like, that smells like roasted broccoli.
That's so cute. It's
I
so
can't
accurate.
imitate my own daughter. Right?
Well,
The
you're a
one
man.
accent I can't do is 3-year-old Seneca. But it was so funny. She was like,
Yeah.
it smells like roasted broccoli. I'm like, that is the most apt description.
That's hilarious.
It's like accurate.
Yeah.
So on that note, right?
On that
I guess
brown note.
down note, right?
No one's
yeah.
shit doesn't stink.
The point is, like, everyone has within them that they want to create a world, or
Not even change the world.
everyone
I would
has
say.
within them that they want
Everybody, well, no. Let's even be more specific. Everybody
Okay.
wants to live in an amazing world.
There you go.
Even the people who hate themselves, hate the world, it's like they know within themselves that they could be something better. Like that's what I started this process with, even before Destiny. Anything was just this point of like, because things happened in my life, and I started to see that they were somehow the consequence of the story I was telling my mind about my life, and that it was somehow the way I was interacting with the world, the way the world was set up. Somehow it was like, I'm not happy, something's not right. And I mean, doesn't everybody at some level? Now, some people won't face that point because they don't even want that cognitive dissonance. Because then they're like, well, I can't entertain that thought because I have to go to work tomorrow. And I know, because when I started asking all my relatives, like, hey, are you happy? Like, why do you do what you do? What's your purpose? Like, you know, and they would always be like, well, my purpose is, you know, like I just play a part in this world and I don't question those things and I believe in God. And it's like, oh, you're not even willing to face this. It's like God, the concept of God, the fear of God. What do they say is the beginning of what?
Of wisdom, right?
Wisdom. But just take off the word whiz.
Just dumb.
It's just dumb and it's domination.
Yeah.
You know, and the
And dominatrix.
Yes, it's kinky. Right?
It is.
But what I'm saying is it's fearing God and believing in God, which is the same thing, because fear and belief is all the same, is the beginning. It's the starting point of you just not questioning the system. Because the belief of God, the feeling you get from it, the strength, because they always say he is my strength. And you always see it. People are complaining about their life online and indirectly by saying, God gives me strength. What they're saying is, I feel really shitty right now, but God is my strength. He is my protector. He will alleviate the anxiety that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
That's really what they're saying.
Yes.
And so within that, they're giving their cares and concerns to the Lord, which just means they don't fucking forgive themselves. They don't do their writing process or their technitude. They're just like, God, I feel so shitty today. It's no different than that guy in THX 11, whatever, going like, I'm going crazy. I don't know what's going on. And the thing going, yes, you are good for admitting your sins. You are good in the Lord. Go and be a good citizen. You are a good citizen. You know, like,
right.
Just say it all out, get it off your chest. Now just go back to work.
Yeah.
Just go back into the system. Russia needs their oil money. Ukraine needs their weapons. You know, we're doing it for them. We're doing it for the Ukrainians. You know, it's like, what? And people don't question it. And like, if they, I was showing Max this thing at Tractor Supply. It was this piece of metal that you hang up on the wall. And I was explaining to him what it means. And it said complaints department, 100 miles that way. Okay. And I was explaining to him like what that person is saying don't complain to me.
Right.
Like, if you're complaining, go somewhere else. Like, I don't want to hear it. And I was explaining to him the context of it. Right.
Right.
But that's really what it is. It's like, as soon as you start to question the system, it's like the solution, 1 million light years up there when you're dead. That's the answer. Okay. No, don't worry about it. Go back to work.
It's so genius. But yeah, so if you actually want to make an amazing world, live an amazing life, then like actually be able to look at it and go, yeah, I'm pleased with what I've done, and not from a pleased like you know, I just got to do a lot of fun things, but like you actually look at it and you go, you know, that's who I am. I created this, you know. Then
and also, wasn't that blog, like when you read it, isn't it fucking like so clear? And it's just like, man,
it's obvious.
It's better than reading anything else. It's like clear. And I'm not like I have some emotional attachment to it. I'm just like, it's so fucking clear, direct to the point. It makes perfect sense. Is it easy to read? No. Is it like one long fucking sentence? Yes.
Yeah.
Read it out loud, slow yourself down. When I read it, I don't have a problem because I can read to a certain degree. Okay. But it's like, that was just day 5. It's just day after day of these really specific, insightful points that don't tell you to believe something. It's like a person going, like, waking up and going, I realize this is what's going on. I understand this. I realize that I refuse to accept this point and to just like, I refuse to accept my responsibility.
Yeah.
That's not a belief. It's someone actually admitting it. Like right now, how many people are refusing to just be like, you know what, child, you're confused. You're not a boy. You are a girl. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to save a child from the discomfort of puberty just so that they can have a fake vagina when they're 20 that has ingrown hairs and constantly makes them sick because of the infections and shit.
Yeah.
You know what? Once you get through the puberty stages, it's not too bad. You know, it's not even really that bad if you're not in school where everyone's teasing you and you're like constantly
Right.
focused on your looks because someone programmed you to think that that's what's important, and because you have some acne, because you're also eating a fucking diet that's unhealthy or whatever the points are. Like,
Yeah.
why are you it's like you're putting your cattle in a pen, and then you're like, well, I got to feed them all these antibiotics. It's like, they're not, it's not natural for them.
Right.
It's not natural, meaning it's not actually the best way.
Yeah.
It is natural now because that's the system.
Right.
So we have to redefine it. That's the whole point. So to all of our haters, to all of our lost sheep,
Bah.
right? Come back. Eventually you'll have
back.
to, you have no come back. But it's not about following, right? It's about equal, right? It's about being here, understanding and working together and like actually sorting out this world. And that's really what this being in this group is about. If somebody's like, well, you're just acting so superior, it's like, no, you're fucking accepting inferiority. Stop,
Exactly.
right? Stop. All right. See you guys next time.
See ya. Bye.